good. It's 6:31. We'll bring the May meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment to order. Scott, if you could do a roll call, please.
In attendance this evening, we have Roland Mayhew, Richard Body, Jane LaRoche, Michael Dellavecchia, Michael Foote,
Here.
Marcia Hayward,
Here.
staff in attendance, Planning Director Robert Mora, and myself for this evening. I'll be recording secretary Scott Pelchat.
Thank you, Scott. And everybody have a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
I have some clarifications.
Certainly.
I would like to make. They're rather numerous, and I've written them out for Scott, but basically, under Stonewall Corners, I would like it reflected that my no vote was due to the fact that I said that there was a marked degree of conflict with the ordinance because the request was for 52 units and the ordinance only allows 22. Also, with the Weirs Boulevard, where I was cited again, I want it clarified that again, my objection was, again, to a marked conflict in the height. The request was for 56 and the ordinance says 35. And then with Weirs Beach Boulevard with regards to the density, again, my objection was for the same reason, marked conflict with the ordinance, which is 27 in terms of 27 units and only 6 are allowed. So I would like that reflected in the minutes. And then under 711 Weirs Boulevard, the only thing I noticed that there is a mention of a gentleman by the name of Paul, but I don't know who he is. I don't have the last name.
Yeah, that's the abutter. I'll
Put in his
add it.
last
Yeah.
name?
Yep,
Okay.
I have that.
So if you would, those are the clarifications I would like.
What page of the minutes were you referring to on the Stonewall Corners?
Oh, my page numbers are on that sheet that I gave.
I lost sleep over that one, I'll let you know.
On Stonewall Corners, it was page 4. It was the first paragraph, line 10. So I just rewrote it.
Thank you. Scott, you have that noted?
I do. Thank you, Marcia,
You're
for
welcome.
making those edits too.
And I'll look for a motion to accept the minutes as corrected by Marcia and Scott.
So moved.
Second. Second for anybody?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Why not?
Moving right along. Extensions? No extensions tonight. That makes it easy. Okay. First on the agenda is 1921 Parade Road. That I believe is Southdown Shores looking to reduce the lot size so they could squeeze a couple extra spaces in. Is someone from Southdown here?
It's actually JLT Development, Mr. Chairman, and they're the owners of the barn lot, and Mr. Tomasello is here, and Sarah Wordy is here to let the board know what the plans are.
That is the Southdown Shores property though, right?
No.
Well, it's
It's in front of it.
in front of it.
Oh, it's not part of?
Well, that's why we're here tonight,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. There's a line that runs through it, and one side is RR2 and the other side is RS, and that's why we're here, because we need a variance for the lot size. In the RR2, it's 2 acres, and in RS, it's 1. And most of our lots are over 1 acre, but not quite 2.
Very good, Attorney Bulliard. Go ahead and.
Basically, as I just alluded to, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you for your attention, board members, and again, this is Mr. Lou Tomasello. I'd like, and Sarah Wordy is here. Basically, Sarah, I was wondering if you could review what the plan is and review the acreages of the lots and the road frontages, and then, this will be self-explanatory as to why we're here for the variance.
on Parade Road, Outer Bridge, and then it encompasses Clover Lane, a majority of Clover Lane, except for a small segment at the end. The proposal is to subdivide, creating 3 new lots for a total of 4 lots, ranging in size from 1.39 acres to 1.73 acres. All of the lots have a minimum frontage of 300 linear feet cumulatively, because most of the lots, all the lots have frontage on Parade Road. Lot 1 has frontage on Outer Ridge, and then all of the lots again have additional frontage on Clover Lane. Clover Lane is a private road within Southdown. It is proposed to be, to cut off, subdivide is that still?
Yes.
A 50-foot strip over the road, to then be deeded to Southdown. They already maintain the road, and there's no risk that that road is ever gonna become Laconia's burden. But also, it makes sense, they already maintain it, their infrastructure is already in the road. It makes sense that they would retain ownership of it, instead of easements and that becoming complicated.
That's also one of the nubs of hardship, is that there's actually a court decree that says that the person who bought the lot, Lou and his partners, they have to provide or propose this exchange of land to Southdown, which takes away a fair amount of land from them, which is a reason why the lots are smaller, which is a very unique circumstance here with this particular parcel.
With a 50-foot strip, the road lot, if you will, is over an acre of the property.
So that's why we're here, members of the board and Mr. Chairman, is Sarah, can you show the line between RS and RR2?
Yep.
That,
Shown right here.
that line, that's
Oh,
our.
sorry, this is the zone line, and then this is the offset.
Okay.
Sorry, zone line is here.
Okay. So the rest of that is in the RS PUD of Southdown that Shores. And the rest of this is still in the PUD, but it's in the RR2 zone. And that's why we're here tonight. And thank you very much, Sarah. If there's any questions of Sarah, I would have you ask them. Otherwise, I'll just proceed to the variance criteria.
I do have a question, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Parade Road, the property line on Parade Road, and then the setback, is that the setback that's being reflected for RR2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
we're
so
more-
where that is, so that's in compliance with RR2?
Yes, the only,
Really?
and one of the arguments you're gonna hear from me in my criteria is that because these are field lots,
Yep.
they look a lot bigger because there's no trees and stuff on the way. And also, it preserves the rural character and the rural nature of Parade Road. And by only having 4 lots, and remember, one of those lots and houses is gonna be a house instead of the barn and the farm building. And that's gonna be further closer to Clover Lane. So actually, there's gonna be less congestion on Parade Road than there is right now. And Lou and his partners have obtained a demolition permit for the barn and the building. And so that won't be there. And the other benefit to this is there was a little congestion at the corner at the entrance to Southdown, and there's gonna be some land swapped to make their entrance a little bit better when people pull over to the side, and it's gonna be better. And in fact, Mr. Wasson is gonna be here, but he did send an email saying that the Southdown Recreational Association does not oppose this application.
Very
Um,
good.
And so, what I would propose to do right now is move into the variance criteria, unless there's some other questions that are good for Sarah right now, yeah.
I was under the impression this was going to become part of Southdown, part of
It is.
I was hearing you just say the road, you were gonna have an easement with the road. These,
No, we're gonna give them the road. We're
you're gonna give them the road, but these houses will be
Be in
considered part
Southdown.
of the private community?
Yes, they're gonna be part of Southdown.
Okay, and then the only question, I know Sarah can answer this for me. We know that the town is considering an ordinance with private communities, and their septic systems and their sewage systems and doing the inspection of them. And Southdown right now has some particular issues and conflicts with the city and their sewer line. So I would want from you, Sarah, to tell me that when you put in the sewer for these homes, it's going to be totally Southdown's responsibility, and it's not going to be considered there's not gonna be any conflict with the city with this.
These 4 new homes will follow all of the restrictions and requirements of Southdown as a whole. My understanding is that Southdown has been in the process of updating their ordinances and working with Public Works to come to an agreement and
Yeah.
to really transition that responsibility.
Yeah.
So these will not be treated any different than the rest of Southdown. And we are proposing to tie into that existing system.
And also, of course, this is the ZBA that has to grant a variance for the size of the lots.
Yep.
And then the subdivision has to go to the planning board, and the planning board has to weigh in on this. Then it has to go through the planning board process with DPW and sewage. And all those things are gonna work out. But just for your information, there is a sewer manhole, Sarah, if you could, that these houses will tie into.
It's located in this area.
Yeah.
So is that sewer maintained by the city of Laconia, or is that a Southdown thing?
Well, I'm not an expert on this, but I understand that's what's going on right now. That sewer is maintained the way it is right now, whatever way that is.
And what way is that?
Well, they're trying to work something out right now where the city wants Southdown to be responsible, and
Yeah.
Southdown wants the city to be responsible. And I don't know who's responsible right this minute, but I'm assuming it might be the city, because they want Southdown to be responsible.
Wh-
So,
One last question, where does it flow into? Does it flow into Southdown, or does it flow
Oh, no.
onto a sewer system that's
I-
a
I
part
be-
of the
I
city
be-
of Laconia?
I believe that it flows in an internal Southdown collection system, and it goes into the sewer interceptor along Boggers Bay.
Thank you for some awareness there, appreciate it.
To clarify your question
It-
about, stepping back a little bit, about the setbacks, even though we are aware, Rob made us aware of the provision that allows the less restrictive zone to be applied, zoning requirements to be applied to the first 100 feet of the zone, and we do show that offset line here.
Yep.
As depicted, we are showing all of the setbacks that would be required for the less restrictive majority RR2 zone. So the 75-foot front setbacks, 35 side, 50 rear.
So basically, we meet all the requirements for the
Except for
RR2
the
zone, except for the size
Size
of the
of
lot, which we'd have a fighting chance at if we weren't giving away that property. But anyway, so if you're done with Sarah, I'll take you through the variance criteria, if you wish.
Please.
Applicant satisfies the following 5 elements found in RSA 674-33 for a variance. The variance is not contrary to the public interest. Allowing construction of 4 single-family residences on 4 lots with less than 2 acres, Lot 1, 1.71 acres, Lot 2, 1.73 acres, Lot 3, 1.39 acres, Lot 4, 1.69 acres, and with at least 300 feet of road frontage in the RR2 zone, within 225 feet of the RS zone in the Southdown Shores Planned Unit Development, satisfies the ordinance's basic zoning objectives, since the rest of the PUD is in the RS zone. Allowing 4 lots with at least 1.39 to 1.73 acres and 305 feet of frontage would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and in fact, the new lots would be more in character of the existing lots and homes abutting the lot and are on city water and sewer. The lots hug Clover Lane to preserve the agricultural nature along Parade Road and the spirit of the ordinance for the RR2 zone. The lots shown are all within 30% of 2 acres and have over 300 feet of frontage, 400 in most cases. The lots will meet or exceed all of the RS zoning requirements as well as the Southdown green space requirements. The impervious area is being reduced by approximately 6,500 feet from the existing barn, house, and shed. New lots and houses are being placed in areas that were already cleared to preserve as much of the existing tree line as possible. Driveways are lined up with existing driveways. We are not putting a house directly across from the entrance to the fells so that when cars are stopped there to take a turn, their headlights aren't shining right into the new house's windows. Granting the variance would not threaten the public health, safety, or welfare of the city and its inhabitants or abutting property owners. The spirit of the ordinance is observed, and residential use of the property is not contrary to the spirit of the ordinance. The property in the RR2 zone within 225 feet of the RS zone. RR2 zone allows single-family housing, as does the RS zone. Allowing this reduced lot size will have no adverse impact to the health, safety, or general welfare of the community. Allowing this reduced lot size with 300-plus feet of frontage would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and in fact, the new lots would be more in character of the existing lots and homes abutting the lots in the Southdown PUD. The zoning ordinance specifies lot sizes to prevent congestion and overcrowding of land. Since the lots will have city water and sewer, there are no pollution concerns. The house and lots are field lots and inherently look larger and less dense and preserve the rural atmosphere. This variance does not violate the spirit and intent of the ordinance because granting the variance would not result in overcrowding. Allowing this reduced lot size with single-family residence with 300 feet of frontage in the RR2 within 225 feet of the RS zone in the Southdown Shores Plan Unit development satisfies the ordinance's basic zoning objectives since the rest of the PUD is in the RS zone. All the new lots will be accessed via an existing road within the PUD that is only accessible via the entrance gate. All new lots will be part of the association and are intended to seamlessly complement the essence of Southdown, including city water and sewer and similar size and lot frontage. The lots hug Clover Lane to preserve the agricultural nature along Parade Road and the spirit of the ordinance for the RR2 zone. As shown on the plan, the closest house is shown 150 feet back from Parade Road frontage. Substantial justice is done. Analysis by the ZBA should compare what the applicant stands to lose or gain against what the community, taken as a whole, would lose or gain. If the loss to the individual is not outweighed by a gain to the general public, then that constitutes an injustice that granting a variance would be able to remedy. This proposal is a win-win. A gain to the applicant, a gain to Southdown Shores Recreational Association, and a gain to the public to have similar lots as are in the PUD on the land and maintain the field and rural atmosphere. The lots shown are all over 1.39 acres and have over 300 feet of frontage. The lots meet or exceed all of the RS zoning requirements as well as the Southdown green space requirements and have city water and sewer. New houses are being placed in areas that were already cleared to preserve as much of that existing tree line as possible. Driveways are lined up with existing driveways so that they don't shine lights in each other's windows. The proposed improvements will also include thoughtful landscaping to maintain privacy and aesthetics. Granting the variance will not threaten public health, safety, or welfare of the city and its inhabitants or abutting property owners and would do substantial justice and be a gain to the public to have similar lots as are in the PUD on the land and maintain the field and rural atmosphere of the RR2 zone. The existing farmhouse and barn arguably represent a health and safety concern to the public It would be a gain to the public to have these structures removed and replaced with safe new structures and maintained grounds. The value of surrounding properties is not diminished. It is clear that the existing dilapidated farmhouse and barn are not structures that generate value for the PUD or the public. Granting this variance to create 4 lots with at least 1.39 acres with 300 feet of frontage in the RR2 zone within 225 feet of the RS zone in the South Down Planned Unit Development satisfies the ordinance's basic zoning objectives since the rest of the PUD is in the RS zone. Similarity inherently adds value. Allowing these reduced size lots with 300+ feet of frontage would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and in fact, the new lots would be more in character of the existing lots and homes abutting the lot and would be among the largest lots in the PUD, similar to abutting homes. These lots hug Clover Lane to preserve the agricultural nature along Parade Road and the spirit of the ordinance for the RR2 zone and inherently create value. The lots shown, all over 1.39 acres, will meet or exceed all the RS and RR2 zoning requirements, as well as the South Down green space, and the lots have city water and sewer. Surely no doubt exists that new building code compliant structures would be an asset to the neighborhood and would be a positive influence on surrounding property values. There is a letter attached to the application from Kevin Shaw, who's a prominent realtor in South Down and Long Bay, who opines in an email dated February 12, 2024, which is attached, that without a doubt the barn and farmhouse being demolished and 4 new homes to be built in its place will add value to the neighborhood, especially to the properties close by. Literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance provisions would result in unnecessary hardship. Unnecessary hardship only exists if it is derived from special conditions of the property which distinguish it from other properties in the area. This property has several unique attributes that contribute to the need for a variance. Those attributes are unique within the context of the neighborhood where the property is located due to the fact that these factors constitute unnecessary hardship and justify a variance. No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision to the property because the RR2 zone requires 2-acre zoning in rural areas of the city. The size of the lots in this zone was driven by the rural nature of the land in the zone and to prevent congestion and preserve the rural nature of the zone. Since the lots will have city water and sewer, 2 acres is not needed because of on-site water and sewer. This property is part of the South Down Shores and Long Bay PUD, a very unique subdivision consisting of single-family homes and condominiums, and is located in the RS zone. This property is not located in a rural area of the city. It is adjacent to a 375-acre planned unit development with hundreds of units located in the RS zone. The lots for which this variance is sought, 1.39 to 1.73 acres, would create some of the largest lots in the South Down PUD with 300+ feet of frontage. Due to the fields that abut the lots and the scenic vistas to the west, the lots seem larger because they are bounded by land owned by the South Down Recreational Association, which will preserve and protect the rural nature and the rural corridor of New Hampshire Route 106 Parade Road. Those attributes are unique within the context of the neighborhood where the property was located. As referred to before, a unique attribute of the land is derived from the special condition that the land is subject to paragraph 2 of stipulation for disposition in the Belknap County Superior Court action Mardazonian versus South Down Recreational Association, Equity 95056, that the owner, when the property is redeveloped, the owner shall propose deeding the road to South Down Recreational Association. And I've attached a copy of that stipulation to the application. Anyway, that more or less requires that the owner of the parcel deed Clover Lane to South Down Recreational Association. That makes sense for all the parties, but it does reduce the acreage available for developable lots that contribute to the need for this variance. This provision of the zoning ordinance was not enacted to unduly restrict development of properties or to prevent reasonable development appropriate to the site. And this variance is warranted such there is no doubt this property has special conditions that constitute unnecessary hardship that justify the need for a variance for reduced lot size. The proposed use is a reasonable one because allowing construction of 4 single-family residences on at least 1.39 acre lots with over 300 feet of frontage in the RR2 zone within 225 feet of the RS zone in the South Down Shores PUD satisfies the ordinance's basic objectives since the rest of the PUD is in the RS zone. Allowing reduced lot size for 4 lots, 1.39 to 1.37 acres with 300 feet of frontage would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and in fact, the new lots would be more in character of the existing lots and homes abutting the lot. The lots hug Clover Lane to preserve the agricultural nature along Parade Road and the spirit of the ordinance for the RR2 zone and inherently create value. The lots will all have 1.39 acres and have over 300 feet of frontage, 400 in most cases. The lots meet or exceed all the RS zoning requirements as well as the RR2 requirements and the South Down requirements as well as green space and have city water and sewer. New houses are being placed in areas that were already cleared to preserve as much of the existing tree line as possible. Granting the variance would not threaten the public health, safety, or welfare of the city and its inhabitants, abutting property owners, and is not contrary to the public interest. Can you see if James is here?
Can I call you up, Jim?
Okay, and I was gonna read this, but Mr. Wasson was afraid he couldn't make it, but he's gonna speak. So that sort of concludes our presentation on the variance criteria, Mr. Chairman. And this is James Wasson, and he's a...
Hi, I'm James Wasson. I'm the president of Southdown Recreation Association, and last week we took a vote, the community, to not oppose this development with the 4-house lot, and that passed unanimously, well, 15 to 1. So Southdown does not take the position. Some of our members may take a different position, that's all right. But Southdown takes the position not to oppose it.
Thank you for your input, James.
If there's any questions, we'd love to address them. If not, we can sit down and let you talk.
Why 4? You could get by with 3. Why you would meet all the requirements if you just built 3 houses, so I wanna know why you have to have 4.
Well, there's, part of the variance criteria now is the economic reality of the situation. And with the cost of development, and also the fact that there's a cost to tear down the existing structures that are there, which is already 1 lot. So if you follow me on this, there was a lot that had the barn and the house on it, and so we're only getting 3 lots. So that's where we are. We think that there was a lot where the house and the barn is, and then we were asking for 3 lots. So we asked for the minimum variance necessary to accomplish our objectives and to make this financially feasible. I hope that addresses your question.
One question, Phil, is
Yeah.
The snowmobile trail goes through there. Is this interfering with that at all?
No, that's on, I think that's on the South Down recreational.
It's not part of this property.
It's not on this.
Very good. Very good. Any other questions from the board?
And I only ask because, so no blowback from any preservation society or historical society.
Well, we haven't
on
heard
a
from anyone. I
50-year-old
don't
barn.
think Scott or Rob has heard from anyone. We're not,
And that's fine if
Yeah.
it is that way, but
But
I thought I
I
might
haven't.
just ask.
my client hasn't, and I'm assuming these folks haven't, because they're pretty good at giving us letters if we get them.
Very good, Phil.
Thank you.
Discussion amongst the board? Public input. Pardon? Thank you for reminding me. Are there members of the public that would like to speak? Come on up, sir. State your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Richard Heath. I have a house at 67 Clover, which, per the way the applicants have filed the application, I think I'm the only direct residents abutting. So just what I'll do is a short preamble. I'll speak to the criteria with some information I think the board needs. I won't repeat it for each criteria, even though some of the arguments, as some of their arguments, apply to multiple criteria. And then I'll, if I may, finish with one question. So just as the short preamble, the RR2 zone seems to me to be very intentional. It's in very select areas within the town for a very select purpose. In the master plan, it speaks very much about preserving the rural character. In the master plan, it does anticipate changing the setback from the roads. It does not anticipate changing the lot size. And by the way, variance decisions, my personal opinion, should not incrementally undermine the intent of the master plan without a change to the master plan. So going on to criteria 1, not contrary to the public interest. In the application, the applicants mention that the impervious area will be reduced by this development. What that doesn't take into account, and I have some photos here if anyone would like to see them, including satellite imagery. I don't know if I can hand these
Yeah,
out.
just pass them right around, thank you.
But once you submit them, they become ours.
That's fine. I made copies, thank you, and others, if others want them. What it doesn't take into account is the topography of the site. As it is currently developed with the barn and the farm, the runoff goes to Parade Road, which inherently has relatively good drainage. There are earthen swales that seem to be of a historic nature to the site, predating Southdown, which also helps the runoff to be directed toward Parade Road. Oops.
Richard, could you just show us where your house is on the photo, please?
I'll come here.
This is Clover Lane, correct?
So this is Clover Lane here, I'm right here, and
Okay.
it's just offside.
Okay, thank you.
67 Clover, so we share, this is where the line of abutment
What's
is.
this dirt road here?
That's an old driveway.
Is
that's
that
in
the
a-
snowmobile trail?
No,
No.
the snowmobile trail cuts through Lot
Oh,
4.
okay, thank you, sir, thank
So
you.
his house is where? Over here?
Just off the photo to the left.
Okay.
To the
That's
southeast.
photo 3, just to the left.
Yes. So anyway, as I was saying with the topography, there's earthen swales on the property that are noted in the photos. Those redirect the drainage toward Parade Road. With the development, all of the properties would be on the downhill side, redirecting the runoff to Clover Lane, which has poor drainage. To note that with 4 houses rather than 3, that's approximately 30% increase in the impervious area of what would be within the zoning currently versus what is requested. The development also likely, even though it's somewhat contrary to some of the criteria for Southdown, would involve removing of those swales, which would further would be further detriment to the runoff going toward Clover Lane. And personally, I think if you make a decision changing the application of the RR2, that is inherently contrary to the public interest, as that is part of the master plan. The other point that you guys asked the question about, I'm sorry to be informal, the committee asked the question about, is the snowmobile trail and indeed the crossing for the sled dog race. That does cross Lot 4 in the plan. That's where it crosses from the other side of RR2 across Parade Road onto what's described as Lot 4 and then onto my property. An interesting aside, when I first bought the property, members of the Snowmobile Association came by and asked me, oh, do you mind our snowmobile trails going through your backyard? And I said, of course, yes. And there was this look of relief. And I was really surprised. It's like, oh, is that a hard decision? It does cross that area, and I think it enhances the character, and I think that also is part of the rural character, is recreational use. So moving on to criteria number 2, spirit of the ordinance. I mentioned some of this. The setback from Parade per the RR2 is 125 feet. I think they're following that. Like I said, it does not anticipate reduced lot size, but change of the setbacks. And we discussed the spirit of the ordinance with regard to the recreational use. Combining criteria 3 and 4, since there's a lot of overlap between them, substantial justice and value not diminished. Embedded in the application is what I would consider to be a classic red herring fallacy. That is, the comparison is constantly made between the barn and the farmhouse and the development. It's not a question for the zoning board about the barn and the farmhouse. Those are being raised regardless of whether it's 3 properties or 4. 3 which comply, 4 which don't. The real question before this board is, will it be 2-acre zoning or will it be less than 2-acre zoning? Now, and it actually came up that an economic injustice. It's not true. Because Lou and I spoke prior to closing on this property, after the negotiation of price, prior to closing on the purchase, that the barn and the house would need to be raised, and he was limited to 3 lots by zoning. Therefore, in his economic analysis of the property, it was 3 lots, and the raising had to happen. So in the economic analysis, there's no detriment to him. There's additional profit from additional lots, but it was already considered before closing on the property. Kevin, in his letter, and thanks to the planning committee for making a copy of that available to me, it was not attached to this meeting. He also was subject to the same flaw, even though, as said, he is a prominent realtor. In fact, I think he earns the majority of the commissions within Southdown. But in that letter also, it compares the value to the adjacent properties of removing the barn and the farmhouse and adding 4 houses. It doesn't compare adding 3 houses versus adding 4 houses. Again, that's the question before this committee. And frankly, we talk about rural character. It's not a question for this committee about the barn. I think an old barn is part of the rural character of New Hampshire, but that's not the question. One other point, and I don't know if this is a consideration for the board, in terms of the community interest. The property is currently used to harvest hay for a local farmer. They hay my property, they hay the property, mainly in that area of Lot 4. In fact, he's ready to do that this weekend. Sorry, but if you're interested, he's not sure where to stop haying for this next event. So I'm not sure if that is part of the balancing of equities. I just make note of that. Criteria 5, unnecessary hardship. Well, and just to finish on 4. So I think granting a variance would be a win for the applicant. 4 lots versus 3, which were part of the economic analysis before closing, versus the community, where dealing with the runoff, the impact of that, and how that negatively impacts the peaceful enjoyment of our properties as well as the value is an important factor. In the point of unnecessary hardship, I don't understand it. I don't think there is one. The stipulation that was noted was a matter of public record before closing on the property. It's been there for a number of years. So it was a knowable item. And then I'll apply simple math to this. So the property's 7.71 acres. 7.71, including the road, does not equal 8. 2 acres, 4 lots equals 8. Do you take the road out, that's 6.52. Still does not equal 8. Equals 3 very easily, does not equal, it does not add up to 8, does not add up to 4 properties. So this harm of the existing stipulation, I don't see how that is real, because it's not compliant with the letter of the zoning either way. So I think those are important considerations for the board. My one question is, not understanding all of these things, as drawn, Lot 4 is a 5-sided property. With a 5-sided property, there, you know, the zoning talks about setbacks front, back, and side. The way I would see it is, are all sides not adjacent to the front sides and everything else is back? Or is the back the side that is directly opposite the front? As drawn, everything except for Parade Road is the back, which follows neither of those criteria. So I don't know how that is interpreted. I don't know if that's something you could just answer.
I'll refer that to Rob. We've had that issue on corner lots.
So when you're looking at a lot frontage, the frontage is where it abuts the road. So for lots that have 2 road frontages, you have 2 front setbacks. You have a front setback on each side, and then you might not even have a rear setback depending on how the lot's configured. You could have 3 side setbacks and 2 front setbacks and no rear setback.
So with the drawn driveway entering Clover Lane, the side opposite the driveway is not the back?
Nope. For that lot there, that's right on the corner there, you would have the 2 fronts. You'd have the front with the driveway, and then the front along Parade Road, and then every other side would be a side.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Anybody else would like to speak on this issue? Hello, sir. State your name, please,
Hello.
for the record.
Yes, my name is James Labonte. I reside at the end of Clover Lane, which is downhill of all of the parcels runoff water. So I, James Labonte, and I'd like this letter to be read into the record. So I, James Labonte, residing at 114 Clover Lane in Laconia, New Hampshire, full-time resident, am opposed to the filed variance request to Laconia City Department of Planning, Zoning, and Code. The zoning code for this land parcel should remain as currently stands as RR2. The following issues would be amplified with approval of the developer's variance application filing. First one, addressing Clover Lane roadway, which is currently a dead-end roadway, which leads into my private property, does not allow and does not follow current road regulations. For emergency vehicle access, for proper road lane width, it's only 25 feet across. Road water runoff abatement is not covered. There's no ditch to catch even the water, so it's just parallel with the land, so it just goes wherever it wants, which is downhill. Increased traffic density of additional housing, of having 4, and the lack of a turnaround or hammerhead for trucks, landscaping equipment, and most especially emergency vehicles needing to turn around on Clover Lane once they enter. Number 2, addressing Clover Lane for surface water runoff drainage. Current major drainage issues with localized flooding and streams. When it has a normal rainstorm, my property sees a 2 to 3 foot wide continuous stream flowing through it. I'd say that's an issue. I don't want a stream. This heavy rainfall, whenever we have a heavy rainfall, all existing single-family homes, there are 5 of them, on Clover Lane that are downhill from the developer's land experience a lot of damp, a lot of water runoff. The Clover Lane roadway does not have adequate rain drainage ditches or storm sewer to collect and or channel the rainwater away from homeowners' properties on Clover Lane. Number 4, the variance proposal of 4 home lots to be built on this land parcel is not in keeping with the existing single-family home spacing and rural character of the homestead properties in terms of acreage, road frontage, or road setback currently on Clover Lane. A plan of 3 home properties prior reviewed with Southdown Recreation Authority would be more in keeping with this rural residential character and home spacing, thereby retaining the rural character of Parade Road between Laconia and Meredith via the RR2 zoning. Number 5, Clover Lane is a dead-end roadway. No turnaround, no hammerhead currently exists for traffic incoming onto Clover Lane. With this land development, a safety emergency vehicle provision should be a requirement and be properly addressed during planning with the developer. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Yes, ma'am, come up, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Labonte, and I also live at 114 Clover Lane. I would like to use this drawing to show you a little bit about Clover Lane that you might not understand if you're not there.
Just tilt it so we can see it, please, Mary.
This is the beginning of Clover Lane right here, and it comes down like this, and then it turns like this. Existing single-family homes on Clover Lane are here, 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 and here. There's no circle or place to turn around. This is our driveway. The road ends at the beginning of our driveway, and currently, all large vehicles trespass on our property. Every one of them. This property is 60 feet in elevation above the properties at the bottom of the hill. There are no storm sewers here at all. The water from this part goes into storm sewers and gets directed out to Outer Bridge. The water from this part flows directly down the hill across all of our properties as it goes to the pond that's behind our home. All of it. Every time it rains, every time the snow melts, all year. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to address the Zoning Board of Appeals in opposition to this variance application submitted by the developer, Louis Tomasello, to build 4 homes on Clover Lane on the property currently known as 1921 Parade Road. My name is Mary Labonte. My husband and I are full-time, year-round residents of Laconia, and we reside at 114 Clover Lane. Our opposition to this variance is due entirely to the increased harm we foresee occurring if it is accepted. As part of the City of Laconia 2018 Master Plan, maintaining the rural look and feel along Parade Road was determined to be a priority. The current RR2 zoning of 1921 Parade Road property adheres to the goals of this master plan, while still permitting the developer to build 3 homes within the existing zoning requirements and without any need for a variance. The developer has built many lovely homes in our community, and I, for one, would welcome him to our neighborhood without reservation if he developed the land within the existing zoning regulations. We are concerned that approving this variance would set a precedence with regards to this and future development along Parade Road that goes against the current master plan for the development in Laconia. This is a slippery slope. Once that rural look and feel is gone, it's gone. There are currently 5 single-family homes on Clover Lane. Clover Lane is a very narrow, 25-foot or less wide, private dead-end road with no safe or legal turnaround. As it sits today, Clover Lane has less than adequate access for emergency vehicles to enter and turn around. Most all large vehicles, delivery trucks, landscaping trailers, fuel trucks, routinely rely on trespassing onto the private property of the last home on Clover Lane to turn around. In fact, both the trash pickup truck and the snowplow that currently clears Clover Lane have no other option but to turn around except to use this driveway, this private driveway. And as such, they have been granted permanent access by the current homeowners, us, and all the prior homeowners, which benefits all of the residents of Clover Lane. This extra truck traffic causes repeated wear and tear and frequent damage to private property, and we solely bear the financial responsibility for taking care of that. By far, the greatest existing problem on Clover Lane is the drainage. The 1921 Parade Road property sits at an elevation more than 60 feet above the retention pond behind the single-family homes at the bottom of Clover Lane. On the first half of Clover Lane, there are some storm drains which help prevent storm runoff from the Parade Road property from flooding the Fells condominiums, which are directly across the street. However, there are no storm drains further along Clover Lane, where the single-family homes are located. Stormwater routinely flows freely off from 1921 Road property, creating both flooding and standing water issues for all 5 homeowners as it flows across our yards as the snow melts and during every rainfall. And I would like to add, they said there were no health or safety concerns. Standing water breeds mosquitoes. And I hope you get a chance to talk to Mrs. Gaskamp, who is here tonight, and ask her how much money they spent to try and mitigate the standing water that collects on their property as it flows off of 1921 Parade Road. The developer currently owns all but the last 22.24 acres of the road on Clover Lane, which is owned by the South Down Shore Recreation Association. And we have been informed by our HOA president that the developer has stated he has not any intentions of making improvements or repairs to Clover Lane as part of his planned development, and he intends to deed Clover Lane as it is to South Down at the completion of the development. Building 4 new homes will undoubtedly exacerbate the existing traffic, inadequate access, trespassing, private property damage, and drainage issues that Clover Lane homeowners face daily. We are appealing to the zoning board to help us keep the harm to our properties to a minimum by denying this variance. The developer would still be able to build 3 homes, meeting the existing regulations, meeting the goals of the Laconia 2018 master plan to maintain the rural look and feel of Parade Road, and minimizing the harmful impacts to the existing residents of Clover Lane. We implore the zoning board to place our needs for minimized harm to our properties above the developer's desire for increased profitability. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Who plows Clover Lane?
I'll tell you who pays for it.
No, I want to know who's
Who plows it?
responsible for plowing it.
The South Down Recreation Association hires and pays for a company who plows Clover Lane, and it is paid for by my homeowner association dues, despite the fact that for the last 20 years, they have not owned most of the land. And that plow goes through my driveway every time it plows
Do
to
they
turn
plow your
around.
driveway?
The part that they go on, they plow, and then in the spring, each year, they come and they replace all of my sprinkler heads that they destroy, and they reseed my grass after they rip it up.
Thank you, Ms. Labonte. Mrs. Labonte, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Kate Dumais. I'm here in place of attorney Mike Pearson. My firm represents John C. McIntyre, trustee of the John C. McIntyre Revocable Trust. So I'm here on his behalf. I would like this letter submitted that Mike Pearson drafted, submitted to the record tonight, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so just to give you an idea, my client is located directly across on Parade Road from this lot. He is the owner of tax map 296, block 155, lot 1. Mike Pearson wasn't able to attend tonight's meeting, so he requested me to attend in his place. My client is also not able to attend. He had an operation the other day, so I'm here in his stead. The summary of Mike's letter is that our client is asserting that the applicant cannot meet the legal requirements of the grant of a variance, and if the requirements are found to be met, that the board should impose conditions on the grant for the following reasons. Number one, there's no unnecessary hardship here. The applicant has the burden of proving that because of special conditions on the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denying the variance would result in unnecessary hardship. New Hampshire RSA 674-33 states that there is unnecessary hardship if no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, and the proposed use is a reasonable one. The New Hampshire Supreme Court had previously held in Simplex Technology versus the town of Newington that unnecessary hardship exists if, because of a special condition or conditions of the property, distinguishing it from other properties in the area, the property cannot reasonably be used in strict conformance with the ordinance. Therefore, a variance is necessary to enable a reasonable use of that property. Special conditions to a property in this context would be something like steep slopes, wetlands, an odd shape making it difficult to accommodate setbacks, or something of the like. The applicant stated that the property has several unique attributes that contribute to the need for the variance, but the applicant's only specific attribute that was mentioned is the stipulation for disposition, which purports to require that the applicant has to offer to deed Clover Lane to Saltdown Recreation Association. The applicant claims that this requirement reduces the acreage available for lots and adds to the need for the variance. A requirement to deed a portion of the property for use as a road is not a special condition to the property. In planning a subdivision, the developer needs to reduce the lot size or the lot sizes to accommodate for roadways that provide access to those lots. Therefore, it's not a unique requirement here. Granting a variance based on a finding that a need for a roadway creates an unnecessary hardship would set a really dangerous precedent here. It could have unintended consequences in the future. Every developer could then ask for a size variance to create roads if this were allowed. There are no other specific special conditions that the applicant points to. The property does not have any unique features that, such as substantial slopes, wetlands. It's not oddly shaped in making it difficult to accommodate setbacks or otherwise. It's honestly a pretty flat, open piece of land from what I can tell, the pictures I've seen, and just driving past it on the road. Under the alternative standard for proving an undue hardship in Simplex, there must be a determination of whether the hardship is a result of the unique setting of the property. The property must be uniquely burdened compared to other similarly situated properties. The landowner has to show that the hardship is a result of the property conditions and not the area in general. The applicant has not presented any evidence that speaks to the specific property's conditions. Our client asserts that this is because the applicant can adhere to the ordinance by subdividing the property into fewer conforming lots. I think, Ms. Hayward, you had addressed that earlier when you said that 3 lots could be made rather than 4. Second, the spirit of the ordinance will not be observed. The applicant's property is located in the RR2 zoning, residential rural corridor, which is intended to recognize the historic, scenic, and agricultural values of the areas associated with Parade, Meredith Center, and White Oaks Roads. It extends 400 feet from either side of the center line of Parade Road. The purpose is to limit development of Parade Road corridor, keeping the rural feel and nature of the road. The imposition of a size lot requirement and the setback requirements reflect this purpose. The applicant's proposal includes 4 narrowly spaced lots and uses the depth of the lots between Parade Road and Clover Road to create the proposed non-conforming lots. 4 closely spaced houses would detract from the historic and scenic value of the area, and it's contrary to the purpose of RR2. If the variance was granted with no conditions, the applicant would not necessarily be required to locate the homes in their proposed locations, and likewise would not be required to access the homes from Clover Lane itself. The applicant could locate the home 75 feet from Parade Road, say, and put the driveways on Parade Road itself if desired. This would detract from the historic and scenic value of the area. If you had 4 houses right on top of each other on that road, surrounded by fields otherwise, that would stand out. That would be different. Therefore, our client is asserting that granting the variance as presented by the applicant would not observe the spirit of the ordinance here. Our client requests that, should the variance be granted, that it be granted condition upon the homes being sited no closer than 100 feet from the sideline of Parade Road, and that the home sites not be accessed from Parade Road itself. For the reasons that I've discussed and set forth in the letter that I've provided to you, our client asserts that the application should be denied, but if the board granted the variance, that it be conditioned on the homes being sited no closer than 100 feet from the sideline of Parade Road, and that the homes not be accessed by Parade Road itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dumas. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against this variance? Hello, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Marcy Gaskamp, and I live at 75 Clover Lane. As you can tell by my Texas draw, I am not from New England, but I got here as fast as I could. We moved to South Down Shores from Florida, and purchased our home in September of 2020. You may all remember that summer, the landscape here was bone dry and very stressed due to the lack of rain. So as we did our due diligence and walked the property, we could tell that there was a good flow for drainage, and it looked like everything would be great. We're long enough in the tooth and have owned enough homes that we always check out that feature coming from the coast of Texas, scampering from hurricanes. Drainage is a big concern of ours. Anyway, the following year and every year since has been incredibly wet. We adore the green, lush gardens and lawns around us, but our property remains soaking wet, not moist, just saturated with standing water, even after just a regular rain. Mowing during the spring and summer almost always requires a tow rope to pull my husband's mower out of the mud. And another problem arising from the standing water, as everyone knows, are those blood-sucking, disease-carrying mosquitoes that just feast on our grandchildren when they come up to visit. So our quiet enjoyment phase of home ownership is is impossible during the times that we actually want to be outdoors, which is early morning and early evening. We sought help from our HOA to address our drainage issues, and were told that it was not their responsibility, but that we could create a solution. So we did seek opinions from various local landscapers and excavators, and we had 3 different contractors review our property, and they all offered different methods, basically the same, but different prices and different techniques and different finishes to address the drainage. They all would use a French drain from the street at Clover Lane all the way to the rear of our property. They would create a 10-foot deep, 12-foot wide water catchment basin. And that project took about 3 weeks with HOA approval and around $18,000. Sadly, the problem still exists. That catch basin fills completely and overflows with not much rain. And the mosquitoes then are a serious health concern for everybody in the neighborhood. And so, as you can imagine, we are at the end of our ropes. We can't invest more money in a hopeless seeming situation. There are no storm drains beyond the Fells condos, which is the first part of Clover Lane. And we have no issues with some additional homes. It's just painfully obvious to us as we walk our sloppy neighborhood yard that 4 more homes will greatly exacerbate our drainage debacle. So if we have no help from the development of the new homes, from the HOA, from the city, from the county, to provide a solution, then where do we go next is my question. I'm also concerned that no independent studies have been undertaken to look at our particular problem or offer any solutions or to find out what it might take to fix it going forward. We're told that these issues might be addressed at the planning stage, but I'm not sure. Like I say, I'm new here and I'm still getting educated as to how everything works in Belknap County. Simple, we've got your back from anyone would go a long way, I think, toward building consensus and cooperation in this project. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gaston.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
I think the applicant should have an opportunity to rebut some of the comments.
Yes. Phil, would you like to come back and address the drainage issues?
Well, as I listen to that, as we're aware, this is our first stop. So we're here to get permission to go to the planning board. And the drainage issues are within the purview of the planning department and the planning board, and all those issues have to be designed and addressed. And that's what struck me the most about this situation. Obviously, there's some kind of problem here, but obviously, I'm not sure that our variance and asking for what we're asking for, it's sort of a means to an end. In other words, we're sort of asking to go on, because if we're denied, then we've got to go start at the drawing board again, and we have to go to the planning board and we have to design drainage to take care of these lots. And if that means that that drainage is going in their direction and it has to be addressed, then it's going to be addressed. But as the chairman and the members know, that's not the bailiwick of this board. And I want you to know, I didn't know about these issues. But again, the engineering that's necessary, the work that's necessary, the plans that are necessary, those don't get done unless we get a variance. And so, and then the other thing that Mr. McIntyre's counsel referred to, all the lots are accessed over Clover Lane, and all the houses are at least 150 feet away from the road. So that's already part of the proposal. And so basically, I guess the only way that Clover Lane's going to get better is if this proposal gets approved and we're allowed to do the work necessary to figure out what needs to be done to resolve it. And how much of that is the developer's responsibility and how much of that might be the association's responsibility. And those matters are not gonna get resolved unless we know we're going forward with a plan. And certainly, I heard a lot more about drainage problems than I did about being opposed to the houses. And also, I didn't hear anybody say that it was a problem, except for one gentleman, about, the barn and the house that are more or less dilapidated being torn down. So I think, again, this is the board's job to balance these interests and figure out what the appropriate thing to do. One thing for sure, though, is, and the planning director can correct me if I'm wrong, if this does go forward, these drainage matters are gonna be addressed, and these folks are gonna come and speak again, and they'll be in the correct forum to deal with that, and to hopefully get some resolution to their issues. But again, this is, you folks are the gatekeepers, and nothing is really gonna happen unless a decision's made tonight that allows us to go forward so that the necessary engineering can be done. Because as you know, we don't do that we just do a conceptual plan when we come before you, because we have to get a concept of this before we figure out, what to do as far as submitting plans and roadway design and so forth and so on. And again, keep in mind, these are private roads. They're gonna always be private roads. So I think the city would be interested in making sure that there's some kind of resolution, but in the end, these are gonna be private roads.
Any questions for?
I do. And I'm curious, as we see the end of Clover Road, is in that last piece that is owned by Southtown, is there a chance for a turnaround to be brought in there on that corner at the end, so it doesn't go in to the nice people's
Well,
yard?
that, to be honest with you, those people own that property down there. And I mean, that would be a negotiation that they would have to
Alright.
undertake with the association and themselves. And
Because I thought when I looked at it, that rest of that road was a part of,
oh,
I could be wrong.
Can I respond to that? Over the years, we have tried to work with the HOA, and they have proposed various things, and we've been hopeful. And then they put up signs that say, it's a dead-end road, you can't turn around in here. But anyway, this is where they have proposed putting a turnaround, is right in.
Right there where it kicks,
Right in here, either doing a circle
yep,
or doing a hammerhead. And this property here, they went to the Fells and approached the Fells, and the Fells said, no, you can't use our land. But actually, this property here is owned by the condo association.
Yeah.
On the other side of this tree line, it's owned by the people that live in Fields Crossing, right here.
so that's one of the 12 sub-associations of
Yeah.
Southtown.
Yes. I don't believe anyone has ever approached anyone in Fields
Interesting.
Crossing about making a hammerhead here. And then a man named Charles Laros, who does a lot of the work in Southdown Shores, he also met with myself and my husband and some of the other residents, including Mr. Ward, who lives in Nissel, about making this from being just a 90-degree turn
Yep,
into kind of a circle,
sure.
which would have some kind of a turnaround. And we had an expectation that that was going to happen, and it went back to the executive council, and the next thing they put up 5 signs
That stated
that
it's
say
a dead
it's
end.
a dead end road. So there's an answer to
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Aye, aye, aye.
My question is, When you gave your rebuttal just now, it dealt mostly with the engineering problems with the drainage and whatnot. I'd like to hear your rebuttal to Attorney Person's points that he made in his letter, that there is no unnecessary hardship and that, the other thing is you don't meet the spirit of the ordinance, would not be observed in his rationale. Could you rebut his points, please?
I'm not, and I'll tell you why, because I haven't been given a copy of that letter.
Oh, okay.
So I can't read it, and all I could hear is what you're telling me and what she's telling me. We have a difference of opinion on that, ma'am. I have set out my criteria. I assure you, as much as there's swales and bumps and topography and gullies and gulches, a court order on a piece of property that says you gotta work with somebody and give them a road, that's a serious disability, and that affects the land. And also, ma'am, when you've got a 375 acre plan unit community with thousands of properties in it, that's all zoned RS, and basically, this property is partially in RS, and you're just asking for that, and these 4 lots are gonna be some of the biggest lots in Southdown. We're just asking to kind of go with the flow, and we've been very careful about the fields. The houses are 150 feet away from Parade Road. They only are accessed from Clover Lane. We're trying to maintain that rural atmosphere, but, you know, I submit that unless this is allowed to go forward, these folks are not gonna get anybody to look at these drainage issues. And Sarah wanted to say something. Did you want to say something about that?
Is she satisfied? I would like to just
Yeah.
add some comments about the drainage and additionally about the illusion of that we were gonna switcheroo and pull a fast one and access off of Parade Road. The subdivision regulations require that these lots be accessed by a private road. We are not ever going to get DOT to give us 4 or 3 additional driveway entrances. It's not our intention to do that. As Phil mentioned, our intention is to try to balance the spirit of the ordinance, which was preserving a setback on either side, the rural landscape of Parade Road. So the houses meet the intent of subdivision regulations by accessing via an internal private road, and it coincidentally also meets the intent of keeping the rural landscape along Parade Road. So additionally, even though a plan isn't approved tonight, any plans that are submitted as part of this request have to be reasonably representative of what we are asking. We can't get this variance and then change all of the access to the lots, or then change where the houses are located without revisiting how this decision was made and what information you had to make your decision. So we have no intentions of changing the access to the lots. The proposal is to access via Clover. Additionally, the engineering will be done during the planning phase, and the planning board is going to have their requirements. But additionally, Southdown has a whole approval process that we are going to be held to, and they have very strict, they have higher standards than the city of Laconia, because typically a frontage subdivision that doesn't require the construction of a road, you wouldn't typically do a drainage analysis, because the increase in impervious area, I can prove that we're reducing the impervious area on the lot. The existing gravel surfaces, barn, and structures that are on the property are greater impervious area than the 4 proposed houses with their small driveways. We're not going to all of a sudden explode the driveways, because that's gonna make it more expensive, and no one wants that. So for the city of Laconia, we wouldn't even typically need to do a drainage study, but Southdown has very strict requirements of you're containing your water, you're not dumping it on your neighbor. So we are gonna go through the drainage process of doing an analysis and making improvements and making sure that that there aren't impacts from the new development.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. You know, when I did the agenda, I thought this was gonna be easy pass and let it go.
No.
I didn't realize there was so much opposition.
Can
Mike,
I
Mike,
make
the
just one comment?
You
Yes, sir.
closed it.
Since everyone rebutted.
Yes,
just
okay.
One comment, because talking about, because again, we're not talking about 4 lots versus 3 lots in the rebuttals. 4 lots creates more of a burden to be dealt with in planning than 3 lots, right? That the planning, as I understand it, is not the correction for bad zoning. The zoning decision creates the construct from which then planning comes to the most viable solution within the construct of the zoning. So it is impactful, the decision of 3 versus 4. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You have to close.
I will close the public hearing at this time and discussion amongst the board. Boy,
Well, just by the numbers, you're gonna need a road anyway. So their road, again, I'm going off of the numbers that they put on here, you got 7.7 overall lot. Using their numbers, they're giving the road is 1.18
Are we
for
on
the.
board discussion now?
Yes, we're on the
Yes.
board discussion, yeah. And so there's 1.1
I have
acres.
some questions.
1.1
Let Richard
acres
finish.
for the road, so that leaves 6.52 acres for the 4 proposed 4 lots. And
Right.
so that gives them an average of 1.63 per acre. If they were to do 3 lots, they would have a 2.18 per acre. And I know we've spoken a lot about construction here tonight. It's completely outside of our purview. I mean, I think that all of us know a little bit about construction, understand that it impacts things, but it's not even something that we even talk about here. We're talking about land use and land use only. And the majority, by far the greatest percentage of the property is in the RR2. And I don't think that, I don't believe that the difference between 3 to 4 homes would make that much a big of difference in construction. But I do believe that the RR2 is there for a reason. And so for me, I would vote to not approve this because they're close enough with 3 lots with the 2.18. I just think we're too far off out of the RR2 to give 4 lots at the 1.63 on average.
Thank you,
So just my
Roland?
perspective.
Mr. Moore,
Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Yep.
If this group were asking for 3 buildings instead of 4 buildings, would we be here tonight?
No.
Nope.
Plausibly not. Yeah, I
Second
think,
question is,
I didn't see, I would have to look at their plans to make sure that they saw the road frontage, if they redesigned everything to have 2 acres versus the 3. I would say that they most likely would not need a variance.
my second question, that RR zone is unique because it has water, city water and storage. If the area were properly designated as RG instead of RR, would they be here tonight?
So I think, so the corridor was created to preserve the natural appearance of that rural character of the area. They have, the city sewer and water systems have expanded to areas out there. I think that needs to be explored when they redo the master plan of whether they want to preserve those corridors or those change. But that's in the future when we look at the master plan and rewriting it. And if we were to decide in the future to rezone something. But typically, you would have an RS or an RG district if you had water and sewer. But there is a unique aspect of those roads to why there's that RR corridor there.
Thank you.
Director, when was the Southdown development put together, or when was it constructed? 85. A question that I had, just relative even to the tax map, was both in front of this road and as well on the other side of the complex of, what's it called? South Downs. On the north side of it, there is also that buffer between, and I was curious if there was any, maybe this would be a question for you, Scott. Both of those lots are unconstructed. I'm curious if there was something that maybe they had to go before the board to ask for something from either zoning or planning, and they said, okay, you can build your South Downs, but you have to leave those 2 lots in front open. And so I'm just you see what I'm saying, Mike? I'm curious
Was
if,
something in
yeah,
there.
but I'm curious if we were to go back and, 1980s, and to say, okay, why, how come all these years nothing has been built there? Why is it being built now? And I'm just curious if there was a reasoning for that. But I don't think my evaluation of it is that we should not approve it just because the numbers are too far off. But I
Yeah.
am curious of.
I don't have the history of Southdown.
I was just curious,
I'm sure we could do some research to find out. But
At
that
this
would
point,
revert back to the.
at this point, it's not significant for me because the numbers just don't work for me.
If we granted the variance, the 4 lots would be larger than almost every lot in South Down Shores.
Yep.
Fair point.
At 1.3 and 1.7 acres. It abuts the residential 1 acre requirement. The letter from the lawyer that Ms. Dumas provided, the picture showing how it would look if it was divided into 3 lots. That 3rd lot is gigantic.
Excuse me?
Yes, sir.
I provided that, which was provided to me
Oh,
by
oh.
Mr. Tomasello.
I'm sorry.
So it was the plan provided to me by Mr. Tomasello, the developer, before closing on the purchase of what we plan to do.
Thank you,
Richard.
Richard Heath. I'm torn on this one.
What do you think, Mike?
Jane, you're not voting today.
It's, I know that as you do this development, and I know that we've dealt with South Down and drainage before, one of the things that never occurred since South Down was conceptualized is an overall drainage plan. You have 12 different communities, associations within the overarching South Down Recreation Association. So there's never really been an overall concept. As we go forward, anybody who does develop needs to make sure that they don't add to any off flow. It's not increased, and that becomes with a study and engineering and planning. I think there's a few moving parts in here. I can see where the people would be worried about traffic ending up in their driveway, but there is an opportunity here on this corner to create this turnaround to alleviate what is obviously not been alleviated. I understand RR2, I understand the setbacks, I understand why it is what it is, and I understand also that economics of a development are not a hardship. When I look at the 3 versus the 4, the setbacks are met. Yes, there's another piece in there. Does it take away? Any time you build a house, you're taking away from your open space. But in the master plan, in the discussions that I've had as being a part of master plan, these are our good guidelines. But boy, you're gonna have a big lot with extra taxes. I can see the 4. I can see the 4. And I recognize that it's under the 2-acre minimum. But we get a lot of discussion about this nowadays, in which some people would just throw out all zoning. You know what I mean? And that's terrifying to me. I can't get into that. But this here, and giving the support of Southdown Recreation Association, in giving the fact that the drainage would have to be looked at well, and there's an opportunity here for good neighborly development, you know, with upgrading some of the turnarounds on Clover Lane. I don't know. I am a fan of preservation, but I do not see this as terribly outside the lines, I guess. And so I'm still undecided right here. I'm going, wow, check it out, man. Still undecided.
My concern, well, I would say that Mr. Heath, I think, made a very good point about the master plan, which I kind of in agreement with, and I also think that Attorney Persons brings up some very valid points that need consideration. But I do understand Mike's point where you know, and the size of the lot, you're very close to the 2 acres, you know, you could get the 4 in there, et cetera, et cetera. I get it, but if I were to approve the variance, it would be with the conditions that Attorney Persons put or laid out, would be the only.
Well, that's already,
do that.
that's already in the plan.
Yeah,
as,
well-
Sarah mentioned.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I would want that written in.
The 4th lot, the house looks like it's over 200 feet from Parade Road. Am I correct, Lou?
Parade Road,
The-
the 4th house.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
It looks like it's well over 200 feet from the road.
It is.
I don't think the 4th house is the reason for flooding here.
Well, the reason for flooding is because the development was put together in an incomplete way. It has nothing to do.
Without an overview.
You're right, it has nothing to do with these 4 houses. The drainage problems that really, everybody here has spoken of drainage. Drainage and turnaround. That really is their concern. 3 or 4 houses aren't going to matter for any of that, because the state of New Hampshire requires that when you build a home or a series of homes, you are responsible to manage all of the water that runs up from that home, that it doesn't interfere with somebody else. So they're gonna do that, so to me, that isn't even a discussion to have here. You do bring up a valid point, that something that I had not considered. The way that you said it is, all of the setbacks are still met. And I say that does, you know, there is some weight to that, with the 4 homes, even though the numbers don't match.
I don't necessarily see this as plummeting down a slippery slope. We're still 1.5. The only reason that people don't get wound up about the fells is because it's over the rise and you can't
Yeah, for
see
sure,
it.
for sure.
You know, but look at the density in there.
The one woman was correct to say that taking away the barn and all of the driving surfaces of the barn, she is absolutely correct in saying that having 4 properly built and drained homes, by far you're improving that property drainage and impervious surface wise. She is absolutely correct in that. That taking the barn and all those surfaces out returns it back to a better circumstance. So whether it's 3 or 4 homes, they're going to do that anyway.
All righty. Richard, I have to remind you that,
I'm not a voting member.
but your input is appreciated
Oh,
and well presented.
I agree with what Mike said, completely, and I like Marcia wanting to put a special condition into into an approval if we were to do that tonight.
But won't the conditions be on the planning board side? They're not on ours,
Yeah,
is
it would be. It would be more on the planning board
Well, let's
side.
hear a motion. We've been an hour and a half on this. I thought it was gonna be easy.
I suppose you could make a motion to accept the application's rationale as presented, but then with the condition that is stated here at the end of Attorney
Mr.
Pearson's.
Pearson's
Mr. Pearson's.
request.
That way you wouldn't have to say all of that stuff. It's just an idea.
Mike, did it.
I don't have anything in my brain,
Do you want me to do it?
please.
No, God, why do you do this to me? I make a motion that we grant the variance for application ZO2024-0012 to allow 1921 Parade Road to seek relief from the 2-acre requirement in Zone RR2 with the rationale presented in the application for all the criteria that is needed for the variance, with the condition at the end noted that it be conditioned upon the houses being sited no closer than 100 feet from the sideline of Parade Road.
150.
I'm sorry, 150.
100 is
It says 100 is what they put here. Do
okay.
you want 150
No,
or 100?
keep the 100.
100 feet from the sideline of Parade
Can do
Road,
more.
and the home sites not be accessed from Parade Road. That was a condition that Attorney Persons recommended.
I would
So,
prefer to see the 150, actually.
do you want me to amend my?
Yes.
I'm going to amend the
But what,
condition.
pardon,
Okay,
pardon?
yeah.
What is the actual setback?
On the design that he gave, if my memory is correct, he said that there was, neither of the four buildings were closer than 125. And we could, Mr. Chair, if you want to ask him now, but I think that that's my recollection.
You really can't
I
press
thought
them.
he's.
No,
I don't think
you're
it-
into it now.
So my recollection is he said as they stand right now.
I'd
they were
hold it
no-
at 100, I'd say what
Just
it
keep-
is.
That's what I would say, Marcia.
Keep it at 100.
Okay.
Okay, the condition being 100 as stated by Attorney Person. That is my motion.
Thank you, Marcia. That we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. Thank you for the difficult decision. Good luck, Lou.
Thank you. One item.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be an easy one.
You thought wrong.
I didn't get to eat all my dinner. Just kidding.
I didn't get dinner.
Oh, when you're retired, we don't have enough hours
We only
in a
get
day.
3 more, right?
The next one is
It gets worse.
Michael, question?
Yes, sir.
99 Nina.
After this night, we'll do one more. and then take a
Yeah. No, keep that. We have
Take a potty break.
Of course.
Maybe after one more or so. Not just for
We
us.
could do it anytime.
Oh,
Well, if they
yeah,
want
'cause
it
I don't
now,
have time. I can
why
go
don't we
anytime.
do it now?
Thank you for everybody sitting there. We're gonna do a quick bathroom break in case one of our board members
Run.
or a member of the audience needs to
Oh, yeah.
use the facilities that Richard keeps so nice and clean downstairs.
He does.
Thank him as you leave or when you come in, please.
Just wanna, you get the.
He's a well-appreciated city employee.
So we're on recess, Scott?
Yeah. you
Yes.
can-
The meeting, folks.
Call to order.
If I had a gavel, I would bang it, but I'm deprived. Moving right along, there's a variance for 899 Union Avenue. Is the applicant here? Come on up and tell us how we can help you.
Alan Waldorf, 899 Union Ave.
I'm sorry, I missed your name, sir.
Alan Waldorf, 899 Union Ave. Hopefully I'll be quicker than the last one. Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you. I think you have everything in front of you. I'm not sure if you have pictures also, or,
Yes.
okay. So we're looking just to move the variance from the sign, from where it was, from where the posts were. When we took our first measurements is where the old wall was, and then we built a new wall. We built a new wall there, and when we did that, and that was designed, it moved. I have pictures of before and after if you want to see those.
Yep.
There you go. That's before, that's now, and this is where the sign would go, and this is where the 5 foot is, where,
Oh, okay.
this is where I'm allowed to put it, and this is where we want to put it.
This is yours. All your notes are on it.
I'm not sure if you had those, Scott, or not, so I wasn't sure.
I didn't have those.
I just, okay.
That's perfect.
Nope. We took our measurements from the street, from the sidewalk on the street, and then when we put the permit in, I think Scott told us he used Google Earth, and our measurements were off, I think, 2 or 3 feet. So,
Here, pass them down.
Here's some photos of before and after.
Oh, is this already been constructed, is what I'm seeing?
the wall's done. We have not put the sign up yet, though. We have,
You
we
put it
we
in
have,
your post?
we have footings in. We have no post up yet, so the footings can be moved if we have to.
Is that the new one?
Oh, that's
That's the
new.
new wall.
Yeah, where I put those 2 plastic posts, that's where the sign can go,
Oh,
according to the town.
yeah.
We just want to move it 2 feet to the left.
I see. You just want to move it over.
Yeah. And they're not as big as those are like 36-inch round. They're actually only 4 inches, so we're going to put it all the way to the right of that.
Look at this stuff.
Lovely improvements in
Thank
that building there.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work.
For fixing it up.
It's been a lot of work. And if we do move the sign back to where it goes, the porch ends up blocking a lot of it.
Uh-huh.
And we're trying to keep that round porch without having to take it off.
What is it, state it again, what you just said?
If we do move the sign back to where those 2 plastic poles are,
Yep.
that round porch ends up blocking a lot of it, and we don't want to remove that if we don't have to. So by keeping it where it was, we only lose a little of the sign. So we can leave the porch intact.
Coming from the north.
Yeah,
looking
coming,
south,
correct.
yeah.
Coming from the Guilford side, we'll call it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's your whole presentation, Alan?
That's all we're doing, yeah.
That's all you want to talk about, okay.
That's all we're doing there.
Um,
Other than that, everything else.
questions?
The sign's conforming, and everything else we were doing was all conforming.
And it's really just the view from the north.
Yes.
Where is it in this picture here that I'm not seeing?
Up.
Yep.
The bush.
This is the old one, and this is what it looks like now.
What's the old sign?
There is no old sign. That's me getting close to the mic.
You're a
Wow,
radioactive.
you got a vibe, dude.
I'm an audio video guy. You see, I won't look back.
Your pacemaker's acting up.
What is this business, Alan?
We do audio video work. We do this,
Yep.
exactly this type of stuff.
Right here, audio and video.
Yeah.
Those are the signs next door.
And is this like your office or showroom?
Office. I actually live on Franklin Street.
You're doing a great job with that building.
Try
It
to
looks,
keep it- try to
it's
keep it the way it
beautiful.
looks. So if I move the sign back, then
Yeah.
I end up, we'll probably have to
Yeah.
move that round thing, we'll have to take that off.
You'd have to take the,
Well, in order to see the sign.
Right
in order to see the sign coming.
If
from
you're
the
coming
outside.
from the north, the
coming
porch
this
would
way.
block.
The porch
I have a
would
question.
block it.
Okay, my brain.
We'll go halfway.
How many cars can you park in that parking lot?
6 or 8, and then on the left side, there's gonna be parking up in the,
I think
if we
all the
want it in the
signs.
back, but there's only gonna be 2 people there probably, 2 or 3.
I don't see why it's gonna
Would give
take
you
this
enough
out. But I
spaces?
do.
Yeah, it's just, it's like a personal office myself,
Take the bush out of there.
Take the bush out.
so.
All right, ask the people.
Any questions for Alan from the board?
That was my question.
Alan, go ahead and have a seat.
Thank you.
Well, how about
Are there any
public?
members of the public that would like to speak for or against this matter? I'll do like Steve Burnett.
Okay.
Okay, discussion.
So the house is kind of canted at an angle like this to the road.
Yes.
The house is square in the lot, but Union Street just kind of goes at an angle. You can't see it coming from the north at all. And so I think what he's doing is reasonable. And it's right, the post is, the way that there's an old kind of a granite area, kind of a wall, and then some blocks, it's kind of a mishmash, a bunch of stuff. But I just think it's reasonable.
I'm just in favor of all new signs being in compliance because there's too many signs up close to the road. Like if the laundromat were to get a new sign, they would never
Yeah,
let
but the
them have
difference
it.
is, this house is ridiculously close to the road.
I
You know,
see.
I'm looking at the town's GIS, and I would say that probably the corner, that north corner of the house, well, there's a bump out, there's like a, kind of a window
Yep.
box, and then there's that other round thing, which I don't wanna take off, that looks great, by the way, I don't wanna take that off. But that close corner of the house probably is 15 feet from the curb of the road. It's really, really, really close.
Mrs. Susan needs signage in order to survive.
Yeah. I am in agreement with Michael that all new signs should be in compliance and conformance. I can see some unique, attributes to this property. And the other thing that gets me is crowding the sidewalk.
It's a fair point.
You know what I mean? Just something to think about and discuss, not that I've walked down there recently.
I drive by it every day.
Yeah, but obviously, there's a lot of traffic on it. Is my next question, would it inhibit any other views of the road?
It's low enough, no,
Can I speak?
in my opinion.
We designed it, actually, we lifted it up high enough, so there's no, so from cars' views, you can see underneath it. We actually lifted it up high enough so we have views. That was something we did in the design.
See,
So if you're pulling out of a parking lot, you can see, so.
now, it's supposed to be 5 feet from the road or the sidewalk? How's, go ahead, Scott.
So the front setback in the UC district is 5 feet
From the road or the sidewalk?
from the property line.
From the property line. And every road is gonna be different, especially downtown Laconia.
Union Ave right now, just,
And when I called surveyors, I couldn't find anyone to come out for once, so.
That's the corner of the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just right there. And
Is that the only
where they
sign you
wanna
have?
They wanna put it basically right there. It's really the only place, it's the only place it can go, and so I think that's the hardship.
Yes, sir.
And look at this house, that's I don't wanna take that
Beautiful.
thing
Oh,
down.
it's beautiful.
yeah, I mean, he did a great job.
Is the sign in compliance size-wise?
Yes.
How about if we compromise a little bit and like go halfway? Is that a possibility, Alan?
I have to redig then, I gotta pull that wall back and then redig, but
I
try not to do that if we don't have to, that's.
Yeah, that's, you're talking about the nice new wall that you've put in there
Yes.
at some expense.
He's asking for 2 feet of relief, so we're saying, we're just to
go
get him to
for-
do something to
for
move it
18 inches
right,
or
to-
12
for
inches?
12
No.
inches.
I'm not there.
No, same with me.
If I could add one thing, when the old sign was taken out, had the structure remained, we wouldn't be
We
here.
wouldn't be here, sure, because it was on top of that granite post that was on the corner, yeah.
Boy, but, you know, that section of Union Avenue is not the most attractive area in town.
Please,
Trying to fix it.
do
You
the right
did.
thing.
The building is beautiful. I drive by it almost every day, and it's lovely. We're getting messed up with signs, and I just, you know, when I read the application, I said, no, all new signs have to be in compliance. But I do see a bit of a hardship here. Are we discussing among the board still, right? We're close to public hearing?
Did you?
Discussion amongst the board, yeah.
The clunt amongst ourselves?
The hardship is that the house is too close to the road, that's the hardship, and there's,
And what he put into it is amazing. And I agree with you that our signs are all just too close to the road already
How
on
about
Union Ave.
if we hung the sign on the building? That would be full view plus compliance.
That
What
may
side?
take it out of compliance.
Yeah.
It would,
That's a
It
different
may
sign
take
type.
it out of
Exactly.
I hate when that happens.
So then he would not be in compliance. then.
Okay.
He's between a rock and a hard spot.
We looked at that.
Is that your favorite bush?
What's that?
Is that your favorite bush?
That's the old picture. That bush is gone.
Bush is gone now.
All new landscaping is next week.
All right. So there's the answer in that they went that far.
Why is it only 2 feet he's asking for? I'm lost here, because it looks like it's,
a 5-foot setback. So if he's, where that front is encroached, he's looking for 2 feet into the 5-foot setback,
So he's
as
still
I read the application.
Correct.
in the setbacks from the property line.
Yeah. So we would say the lead edge of that wall nearest the sidewalk.
it's 3 feet.
And I believe he had discussions with DPW when they were building the wall. That's,
I wonder if it
That's
was
what
a
Donald Trump
white
said.
sign that screams at you, if you change the color of the sign, if it wouldn't scream at us so much.
well,
What?
But he wants the,
he wants it to screen.
right,
Yeah, you want
The blue matches the house, see that?
yeah, it does.
Horses are faster. I think it's a heavy sign area as I'm looking at this here. He's re-landscaped it. He's rebuilt the wall. It looks cleaner.
But we'll have to look at that sign for the rest of our lives.
If-
Oh, please.
If that sign wasn't bright white and was done in better colors, that wouldn't be screaming at you, would that be better?
No, it's a sign is there to draw attention to
I
your
know.
business.
Just
That's
trying.
marketing.
Just
It's,
trying.
it's not in our purview what's on the sign, I'm asking.
What is it?
Does it really matter to the zoning board what's on the sign?
No.
it's the location of the sign.
Yeah,
We've had those discussions before.
Yes, we have.
all right. Well, I'll say okay.
All right.
I'm not making a motion on this one.
You're not doing it?
No, it's gonna have to
Ellen,
do it.
Yes.
would you be willing to put the street number on the sign?
I don't see why not.
Oh,
I
like
drive
his-
around looking for like these, you know, when people put applications in, I go look and there's no
I
number.
think we have it designed to go in the house somewhere, but I'm sure we can move it and put it on the sign.
You know, like right under where it says control
Yeah, I'm sure we
Lutron,
can find a place to put it.
just alongside it, in between it,
Come on now.
before it or after it. Make a motion, let's get it over with.
Go ahead, Michael.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Application number ZO 2024-0030, We're looking for a variance. This is on 899 Union Ave, Laconia, New Hampshire. We're looking for a variance of 2 feet into a 5-foot setback for the sign. As stated here, we prefer that all new signs be absolutely in compliance and conformance, but on this here, because of the improvements that have been made to the lot and the closeness of the building itself to the road and sidewalk, I could read that as a hardship. So, in the findings of fact, oh, we're not going that far. Said it would not be, we're looking for the variance. Thank you. Okay, granted the variance would not encroach on any of the abutters of the public view of the street or surrounding areas, given that there's been some thought to being able to pull out of the parking lot, see under the sign. The variance for granted spirit of the ordinance would be observed. There is adequate space for the sign that they're requesting to be installed and will not decrease the value of any of the surrounding properties. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because you're able to improve, in this point, the sight line of your sign as you approach the property from the north. Hardship being the closeness of the building to the road, and it's reasonable. It will not unreasonably impact any of the abutters or the neighborhood, being that it unfortunately is in an area that has a high sign density.
Could we add that we, 899, that we put the address on the sign so we can see where we are at? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Roland. Any further discussion? All in favor? Good luck, Alan, in your new business. We wish you well. Oh boy, these are going to be fun.
Tough one.
Okay, I have, I guess that our audience is waiting for the next application. Thank you for enduring the first 2 applications, and is there someone from 246 Shore Drive? Come on up and tell us how we can help you. Hi, folks.
Good evening. My name is Carrie McLeod from 246 Shore Drive.
I'm Jim McLeod from 246 Shore.
We are here seeking approval for a short-term rental in the RS zone. Jim was born and raised here in Laconia, and in 2016, after his mother's passing, and also owning a long-term rental for over 20 years in Laconia, we decided to look for a secondary home, of which we found, and we found a great one right on Shore Drive. We purchased the home to enjoy boating on the lake, and to have family and friends visit with us and have them also enjoy the area. We have 5 children and almost 8 grandchildren.
God bless you.
Who also enjoy the property and affectionately have coined it Grammy Camp. In 2019, it became our primary residence, and it is our intent for this home to be passed down to our children and their children to enjoy. We have spent a substantial amount of money on the exterior renovations, and also plan to do internal renovations in the next few years. We own a camper and other properties that we also like to enjoy, which takes time away from our home, which has led us here to seek approval today. However, we love the lake. We love spending time on our boats and jet skis that are also moored and docked at our residence. We also own a property in Australia that I have been short-term renting for almost 7 years, co-managed by my daughter that has a 4.99 rating. We have developed a 13-page welcome booklet, of which I have a copy here, but it does have some personal information, so I am not going to hand it out to the board, but just so you can see that we have been doing a lot of due diligence on this. Which outlines, of those 13 pages, 6 of them outline house rules, including respecting our neighbors, noise policies, and absolutely no parties. It's intended to be a home for families to enjoy. We all know that the Lakes region is a tourist destination for all seasons, especially summer, fall, and winter, which many people come up to enjoy and then do what we did, find a secondary home. I would venture to say that the majority of people in this room have experienced short-term rentals with their family when traveling. And I'm also sure that the majority of them have been very respectful of the homes that they've been in, the community, and their neighbors. So that is all I have.
Like she said, I was born and raised in Laconia and came back after many different things in life. But this is my home, and no place like home. We just purchased a farm in Sambleton, so my retirement job, I think I'm gonna be doing a little farming. But the lake house, if we sell it, we'd never be able to replace it these days. We wouldn't have to be here tonight if we just sold that house or long-term rented the house. But we want to enjoy the house as well. Being only 12 minutes away in Sambleton, if there was any issue whatsoever, if we're here, and if not, we're not here, somebody would be designated, to take care of it.
May I ask what your primary residence is? Is it Manchester, is it Sambleton, is
No,
it
it's
Laconia?
We never mentioned Manchester, but Laconia is our
I
primary
was just
residence.
looking at the property too.
That's a P.O. box. We have a business down in Hooksett, so we actually have a P.O. box in Laconia as well.
I recognize that.
We have homes that we
Question.
long-term rent. We don't want to do it with this one because we want to enjoy it. We worked our entire lives and getting ready to retire, and we want to enjoy it too.
So like, if you had vacancies, you would stay at the lake house instead of the farm?
Absolutely. We're planning on being there this weekend with all of our family. We are there, since we purchased the home in Sambleton, we've probably been in Laconia about 60% of the time, or this year alone, 135 days.
Now, this has not been rented out for the past 5 years as a short-term rental?
No, it
Not
does
at
not.
all.
And what is the ruling in RS for short-term rentals,
Have special exception.
They would have to have the special exception,
which would be?
whether here tonight.
Thank you, Rob, I appreciate it.
This is the criteria.
It was a long first session.
It's in the law. Yes, it is.
I can tell
Will
you what it
increase
says if you'd like to know. It says,
Municipal services.
under
3.
item C, that it's prohibited in all other zones except where the property is owner occupied.
Request
Short-term
these
lodging in an
as
owner
it's not
occupied
to be
property is
general.
considered an allowed accessory use if the owner of the property resides at the property for not less than 150 days a year. The editor's note says, reside is defined as to dwell permanently or continuously or occupy the place as one's legal domicile.
That is correct. So is that your primary residence?
It is.
So if it is your primary residence and you are occupying there for 150 days a year, then you do not need a special exception. If you are not, if you are not living there, then you need a special exception. So
We were told by the city that we needed a special exception because it is an RS zone.
probably when I looked at your property card that I think you have in your application, your address is not this address.
Excuse me?
The address for this property you have listed as a P.O. box out of Manchester.
That is just a mailing address. It is not our property address. The property
So I
address
think what you need to do in order to meet that is change your address on here for your property card to match the property address. And then if your property address matched both and you
Verify it. by-
verify that, then you could just do it with a permit.
Perfect.
Means throw it on your license and it has the right
That's-
address.
I do have.
So if you meet both those things, then you are correct. You only need the permit for it, and you would not need the special exception.
But they would need to reside there over half the
They would need to reside there for 150 days a year.
Definitely
That is correct.
150 days.
We had a primary residence in Bedford, and we had this as a lake house for 2 or 3 years before we moved up here full-time. We just don't want to give up the use of this place. And we have a
Oh, it's a
camper, we're gonna be
beautiful spot
traveling
out
and everything
there.
else, but
But it does just to relay that it does have to be your primary residence.
It is, yeah. And the other thing I want to lead to, especially with a resident of Shore Drive being on the board here, is we don't really use the town beach, and I'm sure it could be a concern for somebody that lives on the street. Nor would it be accessible to anybody that we would have coming into the home. It just wouldn't even be an option for them. We have our own beach for people to enjoy. There's no need to go to our association beach.
it'll be written right in there that
I have
they're
a
not allowed to.
question. Why do you feel the need to make it a short-term rental?
The taxes are exorbitant. Let's just say that. But why have a home sitting there vacant when there could be an opportunity for some others to enjoy it, and then have them make the leap like we did as well?
It's their primary residence.
They have to be there 150
They
days.
have to be there 150 days.
He just mentioned they've been there 130.
Yeah, she said 135.
135. They have not been there 150.
So
Not
they-
yet, no.
Take
So you
Because
a
the year hasn't
vacation.
had 150 days in it yet.
But in the past, I have walked by that property. I live in the neighborhood as well, and that house is vacant a lot.
It is not vacant. Our house, our garage sucks up our cars, and we are in there. The living is in the back of the house. The front of the house looks dark. There's 2 of us in the home. So when we're in our living room with one light on, we
I
go
want
up.
a camera.
We have
go-
'em.
We go upstairs. We go to use the bathroom when we go to bed. It's,
Okay, McLeod's, there's a lot of opposition to you renting out the house. We have 3 letters in front of me,
6.
and I think a lot of our audience is here for tonight. So if you are using it for your primary residence, you vote in Laconia,
mhm.
your cars are registered in Laconia,
Boats.
and
They live there over 150
I
days.
say we should table this or withdraw the application because
If they live there for 150 days a year and they meet the criteria in the zoning ordinance under 235-41M, M1C, then they would not need the special exception, and they could then withdraw the application, and they could do it.
They need to preserve
M1.
the traditional character of the neighborhood. Which,
But if you don't get it in front of you, then you're not.
the biggest thing, folks, is we've had short-term rentals where people rent to somebody from Massachusetts and they bring everybody they know and their cousins, and they have 30 people whooping it up, drinking beer at night, chugging on the deck. And we've had complaints from a lot of short-term rentals.
We get that, and there's gotta be
And
horror stories out there,
If,
but.
if it's done responsibly, it's good. I've recently been on 2 vacations overseas and stayed at Airbnbs each time, and they were great.
In
And-
the very,
Personally, I'm in favor of short-term rentals if done responsibly.
and I think of
Our intent isn't to come here and tell you that we're gonna do it irresponsibly.
the very first page of our house rules and regulations, or house rules and policies, in very bold writing. And we ask that, especially in my home in Australia, we ask them to read the rules prior to being accepted to occupy the home.
Before they book it, yeah.
And the very first thing in very bold print is, this is not a party house. In here, in the rules and regulations, it says that if there are complaints, that they will be notified to correct the behavior, and if not, that they will be removed with no refund. So we do toe the line as far as that is concerned with, again, we respect our neighbors. I see neighbors that are like not even our neighbors in the room here. And so neighbors have talked to neighbors just to make it bigger than it really is. Because
Well,
we are respectful neighbors.
to be fair, we've recently been through one of these, and the neighborhood was at risk. I say we set it down and see what the
Let's
neighborhood
let them
has to
withdraw.
say.
Okay.
Oh,
I think
You know,
we have 6 letters of opposition. We have, I'm sure, people in the audience that,
So if you move forward and you don't table it, then when they're denied, they're denied. They have I do not know, I have not seen a license or registrations. The city would know better than I do.
They would need to provide all of that to the
We can do that.
planning department and show that they were actually living there before we could approve a permit for them.
yeah, there's someone in this room today in opposition, will tell you that we live there. We live right next to him.
But the point is for us is that if they meet the criteria,
There's no need for public
there's
input.
there's no need for public input. And if I could say to the public gently, that a short-term rental is something that is allowed. It's actually a very, very beautiful thing when it's done responsibly. When these people get a permit that they will apply for, if they are able to get it, there are so many requirements around how they use that home at the times when they're renting it out. And you people who live there, just watch. And if somebody does something that you don't like, report it to the city.
Correct.
And
But
that's
tell
it. And
us first.
unfortunately, we're in this place where you don't know how they're gonna run it. You're making an assumption because of what you've seen before. You've seen a lot of stuff here in the city, a lot of stuff. Maybe believe them. Maybe believe them and wait for them to do something that you don't like before you make a complaint. And just trust, because it probably could be a very beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, these are the rules. This is what we have zoning for. The city has a place for it, and these people meet the criteria. And
I don't understand why we are not looking at the conditions, the criteria as specified in 235-70C, number 2, on page 134, and going through all those criteria. Because that's what we normally look at for a special exception, is meeting that criteria.
No, but what you say, in this zone, they are allowed, but they're not,
It
it
is a
doesn't need
permitted use, that's criteria
permitted
number
use,
1, is
exactly.
it a permitted use, and yes, it is. But then there's other criteria, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I think if you looked at some of the criteria, that you would find some opposition based on that criteria from that section. So I'm questioning, I do not understand, just because they live there, I know you have to be owner occupied for 150 days, but I still thought you had to address this criteria on page 134.
Can you
So
say
I'm
it for us,
confused.
Marcia?
I'm confused.
Read it for us, please.
So what she's talking about is the criteria for the special exception.
Exactly.
So if they're applying for the special exception, they need to meet the criteria as outlined in the special exception. If they weren't owner occupied, they would be required to have the special exception.
Right.
But if they're owner occupied, they don't have to they don't need to apply for the special exception. It's
Right.
permitted by right as an accessory use,
Exactly.
as long as they meet the criteria of it's their primary residence and they're living there 150 days a year.
And they would still get a license from the city to
They would
do a
still have to apply for
short-term rental.
the permit for it, which would need to be renewed every 2 years. And they'd have to meet the criteria outlined in the zoning ordinance below in 235M of all the criteria for the housing inspection and everything else. And they would
Okay.
still be subject to being revoked if they didn't meet any of those criteria or they had so many complaints.
So why don't we just withdraw their application and we could do
They
away
have to
with
withdraw
all
it.
the
They have to
public
withdraw it.
input?
If
They
they,
have to
if they
withdraw.
decided right now to
Yeah.
withdraw it, they could do that and then go to the city after the fact and make their case, but they need to meet all the criteria.
Yeah, and even though if we don't need the special exception, we're still going to abide
Oh,
by
yeah.
all these rules.
But you want it that way.
We have a very expensive home there, like everybody else here does.
There is no, there definitely would not be any book it now and, you know, you get who you get. There's definitely going to be a pre-screening of people. It's our home. You know, we don't want riffraff in our home. We want to preserve the neighborhood. We want people to enjoy the lake.
Can't promise it to be issue-free forever, I mean, but we'll
The
address it.
grandkids could come up and act out, who knows?
And they do.
Happens.
You have a camera.
But we do, we have cameras in the exterior of the property, you know, for safety reasons mainly. Our boats stay there. They don't go anywhere. When people are going to be there, our boats are there. You know, our possessions are there. So, you know, we need that extra security just to make sure that people are not jumping all over the boats, you know? That's not what we want either.
I guess I question how you're gonna be there 150 days. Do you plan on renting it more in the winter months, because you wanna be there in the summer months to enjoy the water? I mean,
There's a
I guess I
multitude of
don't
different.
understand the concept.
Well,
Doesn't have to be 150 days in a row.
No, I know it doesn't.
No, it's, we want to enjoy, we're there Memorial Day weekend, this weekend, we plan on having the family up, we're gonna be there 4th of July. You know, the big holidays, we're gonna be there, because we want to enjoy it. We're not going to be having other people in our home during those prime times.
I just think that this brings up the fact that I think the city needs, between planning and zoning, we need to have a discussion on short-term leasing, because we have their needs, but we also have members of the
And they've endured
who have difference of
2.5 hours.
Yeah, and they haven't been able to be heard either.
We need them.
Do you want them to speak?
No, because then you're running it. Then you
You
disallow them.
can't- yeah.
Then you're disallowing them.
And I might add one more thing, that
I'd add the withdrawal.
Just add the withdrawal.
Add the withdrawal.
Just withdraw.
Yeah.
for the benefit of the people that are behind me, the average length of a year that is actually short-term rented for a particular home, as experienced with my other home, is 15%. It's not all day, every week, every month. There are long periods of time that are not rented out. Springtime in particular is definitely a time that people are not really interested in coming to New Hampshire and getting on the lake.
So I guess we just
But
need
we will
need them
we'll
to
withdraw our motion, our application.
Thank you, McLeod.
That's your request?
Yes,
And
please.
members of the audience, I apologize that we had to sit here for so long to not be
And
heard.
we'll gladly give our phone numbers to
No.
anybody in the audience.
Required.
Not mine, yours.
It's absolutely fine.
But your permit is a part of public record.
Perfect.
So anybody who would be wanting to know any more details or information, is that correct?
They would have to put in a 91A request, I believe.
91A?
They will also get information about them in their permit in case there's
Please.
an issue.
Yep.
So, and on the permit, should it get approved if they meet all the criteria, since they've requested to go the other route, that would all go to their abutters as well, so they could make a complaint if there was an issue with the property.
Fair
So
enough.
can I get
Variance for the
clarification as to
motorhome
who
yard.
we should seek for the permit,
Permit.
because we were told to come here?
Yeah, just
And they plan on leaving it there
tomorrow
till
or
it's a year.
when you have the availability to come back.
I mean,
and
to
see
the
us.
planning board?
We'll, it'll be Rob and myself.
Perfect.
That's right.
We'll take a look at what is here tonight and what your steps going forward.
Very good.
If they have concerns,
Appreciate
it's
it.
not zoning.
Thank you, folks.
It's going to the city council. If they have concerns, maybe we can say that to them before they leave.
That'll be good. That'll help.
The city council is going to be a avenue to change the rules relative to that.
Has anything been decided about the rooms and meals tax? Are they required
Hang on
to
a
sign
second,
up for
hang on
it?
a
No, it's got nothing to do.
Hang on a second, Roland, just one minute.
Okay.
Okay.
So motion withdrawn.
Yeah.
Variance
You're gonna
application
address
withdrawn.
the audience?
Special exception, actually.
Gonna make
You wanna
that,
Okay.
address the audience?
say what happened.
Going to?
Moving right along, Maiden Lady Cove is seeking a variance to try and rebuild their cottage. How do you do, sir?
Good afternoon, or good evening. I'm doing well, thank you. So I'm Mike Dombach at 119 Maiden Lady Cove Lane in Laconia. That's on Meredith Bay. It's the last property before the Meredith Town Line.
It's the last property before what?
The Meredith Town Line, I'm
Oh,
on the
really?
town line. Yep.
Okay,
So would you like me to walk through this?
please.
Okay. So I'm looking for two variances. The property, just to give you a quick sense of it, is about 1.16 acres. If it was going to be developed today, you wouldn't be able to put a house there. Right now, there's an A-frame on the property that probably sits about 20 feet from the lake. And behind me is the railroad track of the scenic railroad. It's a very tight A-frame. I'm looking for a variance for the front setback. I could read the sections if you need, or
Please.
do you already have them? Okay, for Article 5, Section 235-35, which is a front setback. And also a variance is required for Article 4, Section 235-19F2B, and that's the Shoreline Protection District. And I'm also in the process of getting a shoreline permit from the state. So, what we're looking to do is the house, as I said, is an A-frame. It's very dark. It does not conform to all of the building codes, particularly in the stairwell and in the main hallway. That is too narrow. And in the basement, a portion of the basement, about half of it, it is granite sticking out and dirt, and it is sloped with the slope that the house is built on. And there's just a lot of permanent moisture down there. So one of the ways to rectify all this, and we talked to builders about renovating, and they suggested you'd be better off rebuilding. So in doing so, we're going to tear it down and rebuild it on the same property, or on the same footprint, except for we're gonna move it back a foot, and we wanna widen it by 2 feet on each side, so 4 feet in total.
How big
Okay.
is that lot?
So it's about 1.6 acres,
016.
and,
016?
yep, 0.16,
Okay, and you are right up on the Meredith line. When I
Yes.
look at that, you're right there.
yes. And there's no variance issues on the sides. On either side, it's just the front and the back. I'm about 48, or right now I'm about 50 feet from the railroad center. And the house lined up about 48 feet from the railroad center. So I'm within, I don't need a variance from the railroad, because the setback there is 28 feet. So in terms of going over the various factors, granting a variance would not be contrary to the public interest, because the current grandfathered house sits a foot closer than what I'm asking for to the water. And I'd be a couple feet closer to the railroad, but still well outside of the 28-foot variance requirement. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed, because the new house would be further from the water by a foot, and it'd be substantially similar to the grandfathered house in general shape, size, and style. As I said, it'd be 4 feet wider and about 1 foot shorter, including the porch areas. It wouldn't be an A-frame, it would be a cottage style instead. What we're essentially doing is taking the A and bringing the roof up so that we could have more windows and more light within it. The granting of the variance would do substantial justice, because we're trying to maintain the character of the house and the neighborhood. It's a modest building, it's a summer cottage, and it'll remain a summer cottage feel. And we're only increasing the foundation size by 140 square feet. And this will help us bring the issues inside up to code, so the stairs and the hallway would be up to code. We would have a flatter basement, and we would have a cement floor and cement instead of the current cinder block foundation, and therefore the moisture would be removed. If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. As I said, it would have the same character as the current building, and it would be up to code. Therefore, it'd probably be more beneficial to the area. In terms of unnecessary hardship, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public, purpose of the ordinance, and the specific application, and that the current house has an established foundation built on cinder block, and it slopes it to the lake. The other properties are on Maiden Lady Cove or on stilts, and this is not. So the front half of the basement is granted, as I noted. and it has, dirt in the basement, and it causes that moisture issue. So we'd be bringing all that up to code, we'd be removing the moisture issue, and, as I mentioned, we're outside of the setback on the railroad piece. And the proposed use is reasonable because we're maintaining the essential character with a similar size and style to the property. We're gonna also mitigate current deficiencies of the current house previously noted in terms of building standards and moisture issues. So that's what I had. I'm happy to answer questions.
What year was the house that is currently there constructed?
1964?
1960?
I believe there was some type of renovation in the 80s, but 1964.
It's a lovely rendering of your new home. Were you gonna have a full cellar? Were you gonna blast the granite out, or?
So we're gonna probably not blast it, but they're gonna take the granite out to flatten it, yeah.
So
It'll
full-
be, I think they have
a full basement.
yeah, yes,
Very good. Lovely.
thank you.
What is the elevation of the main floor above the lake? How many feet above?
Let's see, it will,
Approximately.
probably the right now?
Yeah.
I'd probably say about 8 feet,
Okay.
10 feet.
And,
So,
and the new main floor elevation will be similar?
yes, about every floor right now is about 7 feet except for so if you count the basement, and then the next 2 floors, they're about 7 feet each except for the basement. We're gonna make each floor 8 feet.
Yep.
So the building height will be at a maximum of just under 35 feet. On the portion that is on the lake, it's much lower than that, and so the average is much less than the 35.
Sure. How do you, I was there looking at it, how do you get access to it with vehicles? Do they have to drive down the railroad track?
We have special wheels now. So Maiden Lady, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. If you come down Scenic Drive, there's a fence there. You have to come in from Meredith.
So that gives you on
You
that
do
side.
come in from Meredith.
You cross,
Yes.
so on that gated way, it crosses over the railroad track and gets you onto that side.
No, so you come in from Meredith, and you come down, and you park on the other side, the opposite side of the railroad track that the house is on,
Right.
and you walk across.
No, but how, yes, I understood that, but
Oh, sorry.
how do you get materials and
Building
equipment?
materials?
Yeah,
They'll have to come across the track,
okay.
unless they do it via barge, and I haven't
You have to come down Needle Eye.
come down Needle Eye, that's correct.
Yes, that was my point.
Yeah.
I'm complete, thank you.
It's just 6 houses on that road. We're one of 6. The first one.
Very good, Mike.
Actually,
Any other questions from him right now? If you'll have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
I'll have to ask if there's any members of the public that would like to speak for or against this application. None being said. Discussion amongst the board?
I have one, Director. Is there a requirement in the city of Laconia relative to a pre-existing non-conforming, a percentage value that you're allowed if you are doing a direct replacement, that you are able to expand the footprint?
There is not.
There's not, okay. So basically what he's asking for, again, his numbers, and planning will back that up, he's asking to increase the size by four sheets of plywood. So it's a very, very small amount. Right? I mean, most.
No, there probably should be something.
Oh, there
in the
absolutely should
ordinance.
be, especially
Um,
right here on the lake, you kidding me? I'm really surprised, actually.
There really should be, but unfortunately, there is currently not.
Okay, fair enough then. So anyway, either way, it's a very small percentage increase. I'm completely in favor of it.
All right.
Beautiful lot.
Here's no opposition from the neighbors. I'll seek a motion to approve.
Oh, do we have to do two? Both
No, what's
the
the other?
shoreland and the variance for the,
Front setback?
yeah, do we have to do two separate?
There's only one
They
application.
submitted one application, so you can do it in one.
Okay, let's do one.
The risk is if you don't approve one, then you don't approve
No,
both,
fair
or
enough
if you
then.
approve one, you're approving
All
both.
right, okay. So whoever makes that motion, keep that in mind.
Jane,
I'm good.
we want to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Actually, I make a motion on application Z 02024-0032 for the variance. And that the way the customer, I'm not the customer, just stated.
Customer's always right.
You have me, you threw me off when you got me. As he stated, I mean, do I have to add anything else? I mean, he stated it
You did a
perfectly.
great job. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Looks like a great project.
It
Good for
does.
everybody. All in favor? Good luck to you, Mike and Shelley.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Scott, thank you.
Sorry it took so long.
All good.
Good things come to those who wait.
Moving right along. Mulligan Court. That is in Southdown Shores.
This is in Gulf Village.
Yes, hi, I'm
How do you
Brian.
do?
I'm good, how you guys doing? Brian Glevey, Southdown Shores, 3B Mulligan Court. I'm looking for an exception for a short-term rental. So I bought this house in October 2019. I'm originally from south of Boston, but my wife grew up coming here. Never thought I'd own a place here, but quickly come to love it. Looking for rentals. We just bought a new house in Andover, just had a second kid, and this new house is quite the bigger mortgage. So, you know, most of the time is going to be spent up here with their family at the kids, but, you know, looking to offset some of the new housing expense with some short-term rentals. We're obviously abide to all of Southdown Shores rental agreements that, you know, have a week and list all prior owner renters with all the information prior. And obviously it's our house, so we don't want any partying. We just want to rent to families. And ideally, we don't want to rent it as much in the future, but for the now short term coming, just for additional income, looking to get an exception for the short term rental.
Can I ask, you're in Gulf Village?
Yes.
What are your documents? What do your documents say about renting?
You have to have a 7-day minimum, and you just have to approve the vehicles that they're going to come in advance, and that's just the requirements. And obviously, submit all the names and address information to Gulf Village once we book the rentals.
So, Rob, they're allowed to do a 7-day rental.
Yes.
So how's that impacting us through the city if he's already got permission to do that through Southdown?
So a person can have permission to do it through their HOA, but that doesn't supersede the city's law of having a short-term lodging ordinance, which we do. So he would still need to meet our requirements. Even if Southdown did not allow it, he could still apply through here, and it would be a civil matter between the HOA and the property owner, because we don't enforce their laws.
Is he in the shoreland district, so he's not required to be the 150 days?
No, so that's a different criteria in the zoning ordinance for short-term lodging. He's requesting a special exception, not saying that it's his primary residence. So then he needs the special exception.
Because he's not a primary.
Because it's not his primary residence.
And he doesn't live there 150 days
Right.
a year.
So now he needs a special exception.
And now it's not been rented for the past 5 years.
Right, so
which
then-
is another one.
So then in the zoning ordinance,
Now you
under
can look at that
23570 is when you have your criteria for your special exception. And now, this applicant will have to meet that criteria for the special exception.
Okay, and the criteria are, is it an authorized use? The answer is yes. Second criteria is, will it increase demand for municipal services? The third criteria, you have to meet the provisions set forth on page 82. The fourth one is the request cannot create hazards to health, safety, or the general welfare of the public. And number 5, has the property been used in this common practice for the last 5 years, or is there a given community benefit? That's the criteria.
I don't see that. What is the community benefit?
There isn't any as far as I'm concerned.
Let's let him
It's all
finish his thing, and then we can
personal.
talk amongst ourselves.
All right.
New people come every time they're here. They go to restaurants and stuff. They don't stay home and eat. They
Yeah, but-
use.
Yeah.
But he
that's it.
indicated he's looking for income, so it's more for his benefit financially.
But I do believe, to your point, you know, my wife came up renting here. It generates a lot more people to go out to the small businesses in town, and I've had a lot of people that, you know, friends and family that come up and stayed with me immediately looking to purchase a home down in Southdown Shores as well. So obviously, my benefit is to, you know, ease my burden, but I think there's a greater benefit for city, for tax purposes, spending money in small businesses, et cetera.
But I also think that this is unique to Southdown too. Their condo docs already allow it for
Right.
7 days. So they're expecting that that's the kind of thing that's going to happen in that community.
Very good.
Now, if it were my community, it'd be a different story.
Brian, have a seat for a moment, and I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to speak for or against this application. That being none, let's do some further discussion amongst the board.
So that whole strip, it's right along the golf course. It's the series of, I don't know, it's really unique to this area. It's just, they're almost like condos stacked together like this, just right along the entire golf course. And when I drove by there, wasn't a car in sight. They just paved the driveway recently in that whole area. And I think that it's set up as a rental for people just coming and going. So I think it's expected. Beautiful, beautiful place.
I'm not at all opposed, so
No, me either.
Then he's doing the right thing.
seek a motion. Roland, it's your turn.
I'll do it.
Don't pick on her.
I'd like to, let's see, let me pull his documents up in front of me for a minute. Grant the special exception for applicant ZO 2024-0034, which provides a special exception for a short-term lease at 3B Mulligan Court. And the reasons are that, number one, he does meet the criteria. It is an authorized use for that property. Number two, it will not increase the demand for municipal services because Southdown is designed for renting. And so I think they've kind of planned for that. Number three, he will have to meet all the provisions set forth on page 82 in the zoning ordinance. Again, the request will not create hazards to health, safety, or general welfare of the public because, again, Southdown is geared to having short-term rentals. His documents allow for short-term rentals. So it is, in a sense, a common practice for Southdown. It may not be a common practice for his particular property, but it is for Southdown. So for those reasons, I think it should be granted.
Thank you for that motion. I'm seeking a second.
Second.
Roland seconds it. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck, Brian.
All right, thank you all.
Run a nice ship, and everybody will be happy. Oh, I do have that picture. All right. Last but not least, 12 Veterans Square. Hello.
Hello. Hi, I'm Melissa Opperly with Chaos and Kindness and the Cake Theater. I would just like to tell you that I am a downtown resident. I just feel like you know where everybody else lives. You might as well know where I live too. So Chaos and Kindness is moving our store from Lakeport to the Cake Theater. And what we're requesting is an addition of a third sign on our building so that we can identify that the Chaos and Kindness store has moved into our very unique space. We would like to add a 4x8 suspended sign on the right below the cake sign, and the sign would have the same width or dimension as the Fratello sign, which is why it was utilized as an example. Our desire is to build a light box, much like the cake sign is, so that it would be the cake illuminated light box sign on the side, and the Chaos and Kindness sign would be right below it. I believe our building is so unique. People are often confused by what happens inside the cake. So by adding the Chaos and Kindness sign, it would be a clear delineator that the Chaos and Kindness store is now there. Our customers that are coming into town to visit us and the store would know that's where they're going. It would be visible. They could know that they need to find parking in the area and not create weird roadblocks by trying to figure out what the big white building is. As a retail store, it would serve no justice not to have signage outside. People need to see where you are in order to go shopping. The request for the third sign seems a little congruent with other retail stores in downtown Laconia. Bootlegger has 4 signs on their building. Henry's Dry Cleaning has 3 signs. So I don't think that our request for a 3rd sign while we're bringing in an additional entity would be problematic.
And you're gonna put it right under the existing cake sign
The-
that's there,
The suspended cake sign,
right?
right below it. So it would still be between 16 and 18 feet from the ground at its lowest point. But it would be, because the Chaos and Kindness logo is much larger than the cake logo, we wanted to do it as a 4x8, very similar to the Fratello signage.
What is the sign of the cake, your illuminated?
It's a
cake
light
sign?
box.
I know it's a light box, but what size is that right now?
I don't recall, I wasn't a part of that sign. It was whatever the allottable sign length was for the original sign to come in. Scott, you don't remember, do you?
Do not, that came in before my time here at the city, but we do have it on file downstairs.
4x8 seems.
So what are we looking for here in the variance? Are we looking at overall?
No, you're
Just
Signage.
the 3rd sign where 2 are allowed.
It's in Veterans Square, and in Veterans Square, they only allow 2 signs, and they want a 3rd.
And so the awning counts as
It
a sign?
counts as a sign, yeah. Which is intriguing because if you go to Catch Penny as an example, they have glass windows and they have logoed with clings on their glass windows, which is very similar to a logo on a canopy.
And you're not going to balance the building by putting your Chaos and Kindness on the left side of the approach?
I could present that. I think the
I don't
desire was
know.
just to keep it on the same side, so all the signage was on the same side. And a majority of what happens in our building, we haven't always historically used the front doors. We use the side door where the driveway is.
All right.
So that's our ADA access into the building is that side. So it just seems like we would want to keep it on that side.
So you usually where the dumpster is, that's the side
yes.
you usually access?
Yeah. Yes.
Why do you have 2 signs that say the same thing? The awning says the cake, and then you got the light box that says the cake.
Yeah, so
Why do you have
yeah,
them saying the same
it's a
thing?
great question. Because the building is so unique, many people don't see the suspended sign and are very confused on what we are. So for us to really brand it without over branding it, it was important to say we're not really a church, we're something else. So by having the awning signage and the suspended signage, if you were walking down the street, you could see it. If you're driving down Veterans Square, you could see it, or see that you're coming upon it. And it was kind of important to get people away from thinking that we're a church, although they think we're a bakery.
I was going to say, they
Yeah.
think you're a baker.
But you know what? Laconia Village Bakery loves us because we just give them the direction right around the corner.
You know, I've
Yeah.
always been curious why you advertise as, you say you are the cake theater.
Yeah.
Why you don't have the word theater on your
I think that potentially is going to come around as a requested change.
A 4th sign.
No more signs.
No, in addition to your awning.
We may want to remove the logo on the awning and change it to the Cake Theater so that they know that that's a theater. That's my speculation on what my management team is probably going to say at some point.
I notice, you know, there's a lot of, you have to live here locally and understand and are familiar with Chaos and Kindness, because if you just see Chaos and Kindness, I think of the performing group. I don't necessarily think of the store. That's what I think of when I hear the words. And when I see the cake, I know that you're a theater.
Yeah.
But again, if you are somebody that follows the group and whatnot, I'm sure you are on social media. I notice you have a website.
Yeah.
And on your website, you sell your merchandise. And you can put on your website your address of where your store is.
Yeah.
So I do not understand why you could not be in compliance by taking the sign, your second cake sign, and just altering it to let people know the store is there, turning that into a Chaos and Kindness, and still be in compliance with the city. Because to me, putting a 3rd sign, I don't think is going to deter, or I shouldn't say deter, but create more traffic for you? Because I honestly believe you probably sell most of your merchandise online.
Sure, we do sell a lot of our merchandise online, that's correct. Chaos and Kindness, the store, is the retail brand. The Cake experience, so Cake is the Chaos and Kindness experience,
Right.
which is the church. So the separate of the two is the venue can be utilized for, we had weddings there, we have corporate meetings there. So we want to maintain the branding of the venue as it is. So you have to think that we're two separate entities. So the venue is moving in another brand, happens to be the same owner, but they are both unique in what they do, and they're unique in their own brand recognition. Recycled Percussion are the performers. So they perform within the venue, but we don't brand them into the mix because they are a hired act, if you will, into the space, like the Tom Petty tribute band we had or any other entertainment like that. So that's why it's important for us to maintain the two brands separately.
But you still could do that with two signs.
Yeah, I think that because the logos are so uniquely different, we just want to have that awning as the Cake Theater so that you know you're coming to the Cake Theater or the Cake. And then have the suspended sign so when you're driving up and down Veterans Square, you can see the building as a driver because the awning sits flush forward with the building and the Cake suspends out so you can see it. So for us, it just seems to make more sense to have both illuminated signs.
4x8 is gigantic.
Well, it's the same size as Fratello's. And that's kind of why I gave you the Fratello's sign as the reference, because it sounds big, but it actually doesn't look that big.
32 square feet is 4x8.
What'd you say?
Well, I'm reading, that we allow 32 square feet for,
And I see the sign over the door,
Yeah,
and the sign up in the corner,
yes.
and it says, those are the current two signs.
The
that you
current two
have.
signs, yes.
On the other side, it says proposed new location, but it looks like your new location is in the same location as the original.
It's just below it.
Just below it.
Huh?
Just below it. The new sign would be added just below the
Oh,
Cake
okay.
sign.
Oh, okay, you don't have the sign up there.
Correct.
So even with a 32 square additive feet, they'd be within,
They are gonna be, yes. The detracting to two signs is for the downtown district to help keep the signs in balance. We do have entities that sprout new signs miraculously, but
yes, I know one that's crazy.
I also feel it's not an egregious ask because, I mean, if you look at Bootleggers has massive signs on Main Street, on the rear side, and then on the turn to the rear side. It's, I mean, we're clear it's Bootleggers, but again, as a retail brand, signage is so important.
I know, and I'm not motivated to make things more conforming by making it worse.
Yeah.
But this is Veterans Square, and there was a reason why Veterans Square got limited to two signs, and not Bootleggers, and not Colonial Theater and whatnot. It's a specific area, and there was a reason
excuse me,
why.
Marcia, it is the downtown area.
All of it.
more than
It's
just
all,
Veterans
yeah, it's all
Square.
under
I thought it
urban
was for
commercial.
just Veterans
No,
area.
The roads are listed, and I'll email you the correct
Oh, okay.
roads.
You guys feeling?
As long as it's just the whole downtown area, because because I thought it was just that area there had to be just two signs.
No, they've got the roads listed out in the.
Okay.
Public?
any public, anyone?
Okay, Melissa, have a seat for a moment.
You got it.
And I'll get some input from the public. Would you gentlemen like to speak for or against this matter? You're just hanging out with us, all right. Discussion amongst the board.
Director, question. So this is a separate business on the building. Is the zoning relative to a quantity of signs on a building? or a quantity of signs for a business. Because the way that I read this, at least on here, it was a separate business requesting its own sign outside of a building. That's how I saw this, and knowing what it is and where it is and everything, I didn't even consider that the awning was still a sign. You know, as the location of it, Veterans kind of curves like this, I wanna say the church, because I was in that church a really long time ago. And you can't see anything, that awning, you can't see unless you're at the railroad station. You know, and I was kind of thinking, okay, a separate business, now you are putting a second sign perpendicular to the wall so you can see it. That's kind of how I read it. Thoughts?
It's a third sign.
Technically,
Okay.
if it is a distinct separate business, it would not count then, and they would be
Exactly.
allowed 2 signs per business.
So you got 2. Withdraw your thing.
Does
But
it
is
at the table.
it a separate business?
Oh, it's separate EINs, yes,
Yeah.
very separate.
So if it is a separate business, correct, then 2 signs per business.
There you go.
I withdraw my application. You all go home. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your energy. Yes,
Thank you for waiting for the whole
Did you
thing.
enjoy, like, watching?
Yeah.
You just, they
Very
have-
good point. You are good.
Yeah.
Told you. I didn't even know what cake stood for.
The Chaos and
taught
Kindness
me stuff
Experience.
Today.
I should.
I'll send you a bill.
I should.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Have a nice night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Melissa.
It is,
Oh, God.
yeah.
So just so the board knows, because of the sign ordinance, we recognize that there is a lot of issues with our sign ordinance. And we have been working on crafting a new one because everything about ours is overly complex and difficult to follow. So this is a exact point in case of the issues with that ordinance.
My question, if I might, is across from the Taylor home, what is, part of Irwin's?
Yeah.
Are we done? Are we?
No, we're
Yeah,
still,
this is,
we're
I
still
think
a
we're
public meeting.
under other business, I would presume.
Yeah.
The building for the used cars is all signs. It's, you know, and so what's with that? I mean, that's,
Money.
They have like those little sprout signs that, you know, they're on the.
no, it's not even that. It's on the windows. It's
Gigantic.
all a part of it. It's the same thing that she says about bootleggers is, where does it become?
So I think the issue, and I agree, because it is an issue. It's in our sign ordinance that those are all signs. Oftentimes when people are submitting their sign permit, they're not thinking about those things. And then we won't know until somebody goes out and they see something or they complain about it, and then you're like, oh, look at that, it is wrong.
I just complained.
So,
Okay.
Does
Okay, I got it, I got
the
it, I got it.
ordinance make a difference between signage and advertising?
no. And that's the other issue we have. So if you have a sign on in your marketing for, I'm gonna make up something so that way I don't get myself in trouble. ABC Gas Company, and you have gas pumps, and it is just your brand, that counts as a sign. Even though, so now if you have you're putting in gas pumps and then you have your overhead canopy, you've far exceeded your number of signs because you have your name or logo 14 times on your gas pumps.
Yep.
And then you have your signs on your canopy. And the reality is that excessive? No, that's pretty much what you expect when you come for a gas station, that you're branded, but according to our ordinance, it is excessive. And it's the same principle of, to bring up that you wanted the address on the sign. So a sign is a sign for marketing, not your address. Address is managed by 911 in International Property Code.
It's a decal.
It's a decal, and it's
on the
how
building.
you're identifying a lot for 911,
It's on
and it meets a very specific criteria, so it's not confused.
That's true.
And putting numbers on signs could detract from the actual address of where you're going and create more of a safety hazard of your identification. Because emergency response is looking at specific criteria going down. So that's just food for thought moving forward. And I think that those are all aspects that need to be addressed within our sign ordinance, which is why we brought it to planning board several months ago, and they said, why don't you think about some more things and then come back? So through our due diligence, we've discovered a lot of things. So that's something that we're actively working on. Scott's been drafting up some stuff, and we've been reviewing it. So hopefully in the next coming months, we'll have a polished product. We're just not there yet. There's a lot of things going on in the city that we're all trying to work on. But just so you know, that's what's going on there with signs.
So, you drive by the Chevy dealer. Is every time you see the Chevy, is that a sign?
So-
Then you've got Cantain or now
So
it's
technically,
Ford,
under the
right?
ordinance, that is absolutely correct. It's a sign.
How many times do you see Chevy or Chevrolet or
And that's the thing is,
Irwin now?
you drive through the city and you're seeing a ton of signs. Is that really an excessive amount of signs, or that's why we really need to reinvest and look at what we're doing? And
I love signs.
I mean, signs serve a purpose. It's marketing. It's directional. It's wayfinding. There's lots of purposes to signs, and what's the right path forward. And I think that's something as a community and as boards we need to look at and come to a mutual agreement.
I remember a set of signs across from the spa, and there was discussion on that building, on what was excessive signage.
So, and not every situation is the same, which is why we have a zoning board.
Right.
You got gas stations with 40 signs, and then you got a cobbler shop with one sign and then a window. There's what's the right mix for everything, and one size doesn't fit all. So, but we're working on that, and we will let you know our findings when we get to the end of the road.
Look at Union Avenue, this picture of Fratello sign. How ugly does that look?
I don't judge whether things are ugly or not ugly.
I'm not saying Fratello sign. Looking up the road, all you see is...
You know my biggest thing that I see when I look down this road?
Telephone poles.
The telephone poles.
Exactly.
That's all I care about is when I drive through Laconia, I see telephone poles and I hate them. I absolutely hate them.
They buried them.
I would bury every single one of them because I don't want to look at it. I think that detracts from your entire character.
We'll close the meeting. Motion to
Wait,
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Vote.
Done.
You want to adjourn?
What do you want to
Thank
do?
you,
about
folks.
Adjourn the meeting?
Regulations, you sent them
Raise your
out.
hand.
Oh, I don't necessarily want to do anything,
Okay.
but